just as crazy.
For this place, for guys to come looking unglued. For the first time in 13 fucking years.
What do you think, man?
There's no thing.
Well, you gotta go on air and show your face.
How much they mean to the underground fucking scene. This is the mighty IMPETIGO.
It's cool that all these bands came back, right? It's too bad that some of them wanted to come back even more. Now we can't play shows for fucking years.
Oh, I can barely hear over here. Brad, don't tell me you were there. I don't want to know anybody was there. Because I wasn't there. That's not fair. Oh, good old YouTube, eh? Fuck you, YouTube. Yeah, he's wearing a Blood Freak shirt too.
Yeah. Urban? Yeah, this is 4 Roses. It's like surprisingly smooth for fucking bourbon. And it's in there. About that. Well, this is the guy that was like the whole time. Yeah, he was like in the table the whole time, right? Because he started out as a three-piece, right? Yep. There's a good question. Ask me why they changed their style. They like more noise and more.
Tom, you're killing me. And still the same sound as it was on the album. It's the exact.
This is a little ditty called Disorganized.
This is a good one.
Yeah, off the Faceless EP.
Yeah. This is one of the first songs I ever heard.
It's okay, Tom. I understand. I'd be bragging too if I was there. Fucking vocals. It's ridiculous.
This is actually a fucking Area Pro 2 guitar. This is my first guitar.
Miss Charvel.
Oh, maybe it's a Charvel. Yeah, you might be right.
You know what said it first.
Yeah, Jimmy, I seen your message. We'll chat after, brother.
Fucking A, that's fucking sick.
Did you know your
Oh,
favorite
fuck you.
cereals
Yeah, Kellogg's.
have
No,
flavors?
get out of here, Kellogg's. You don't know nothing.
You asked, and we
No, I
listened.
don't.
You can now get the complete full-time filmmaker.
It's too long a video. That's the problem.
$9.99.
Fuck you.
Advertisers gotta get paid.
They do.
Well, what do you think? It's been 13 years.
Fuck, I wanna go see shows.
I know. I'm dying for shows.
Oh, yeah. Hey, what's up? Johnny Vomits in the house, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah. I'm gonna send this song out to the Chicago crew. There's so many fucking of you here tonight. And I'm a little bit aged. I don't remember all your names, but especially I want to say hey to Ken. Yeah, the middle merchant. And Sean fucking Ferguson. All you sick motherfucker. And Mr. Vomit. Okay. And all you sick bastards from Chicago, this one's for you. And you do, and this was for you, bro. This is it. I work for the Strictly Die.
Yeah. Fucking love this song.
So Central Illinois Fest. This was at CIM. Yeah, that's right. There's no wire.
Excuse me, testicle difficulties.
Ah.
Intro, Luke, please, Mr. Andrew. Start over.
Everybody knows it.
Nothing.
What you fucking do, man? That's my favorite.
head straight. To make the necrophiliac fun. That riff rules.
I love the drums. That's awesome. I'm trying to figure out the amps.
IMPETIGO all day. Cardiac arrest. All right, you guys are watching right now. You guys are going to be jamming. And you're watching this right now? Fuck it, hey, guys. Well, you were there. Was it cardiac arrest that was there? I think you said. You guys played this fest? You got to see fucking IMPETIGO. That's not fair. Anybody who's seen IMPETIGO is not fair. I love that riff. That fucking riff when it comes in like that. Oh, ridiculous. Oh, what's up, you fucking dumbasses? Yeah, I just thought I'd get you prepped on a little IMPETIGO there. See what, get everybody a little riled up. See what's going on. Man. Honestly, man, one of my top tier bands that I need to fucking see, and I don't know if it's ever gonna happen again. 2007, 13 years ago already, and this is a reunion. Oh my god. Uh-oh. Let's see, what did I get? What did I get? Oh, this is what I ordered. That's right. You get a little Cemetery Filth. You guys are into these dudes. I like how they put the old school promo photos like they did back in the day. That's fucking awesome. Oh, little note. Ooh. Look at that. Even a bordered fucking letter. Yeah, that's what you do. That's what you do. Nat Kilpatrick, fucking A, dude, from Cemetery Filth. I appreciate it. It's nice to see letters still. Man, I can't even. What?
Written.
Well, they're written, yeah, written though, but
written word
to come with a bordered, like prefabbed sheet or whatever like that.
It's like stationery for death metal.
Stationery. That's. Yes, their own stationery. That's exactly. I did my own too, man. I totally did.
We all did.
I mean, you had to so that So when you wrote the letter, you didn't just have to draw everything every time. You'd have your logo and whatever like that, right? Fucking right.
You know what's funny? I was gonna tell you too. When I read in like a review of Mangled, your demo, the guy said that you made IMPETIGO seem jazzy.
Get out.
I fucking swear to God, man. I forgot I was going to tell you that before. He said Mangled makes IMPETIGO seem jazzy.
Wow. I don't remember that. Was that was
Sepulchral voice.
That was the sepulchral voice?
Yeah.
Hold on.
Oh, commercials.
Oh, hold on. We can't watch
Kellogg's.
the No. Alright, hold on. Hold on. Do I have it?
Sick motherfuckers.
I don't think it was that one. No. It's upstairs.
It was one of the like brownish looking ones.
No. Not this one.
That was one I definitely had. That one.
I want to send this one out to the. Hey, not a whole lot. Jeff, this
It was like it would be in the review section.
Yeah.
Hey, Jeff, what's up?
There it is.
So there's a review of my old band, and like we talked about before, Mike Campbell from Oshawa used to do this zine called The Sepulchral Voice. Always bringing up my Canadian guys. The Sepulchral Voice. So we were in contact for a while, and he came down to one of our shows, and he was good friends with the Inbred guys, and Massification, and Nailed, and anyways. So yeah, his magazine was the Sepulchral Voice, and he did a write up of our demo back in '93. Eh? All right, let's see if I can't even see this. Cam Schwartz's grinding gore machine is back with their first. Oh, I'm fucking. I can't see. Oh. Oh, spilling everything.
Hold your phone to it, man.
If I remember correctly, the rehearsal, which had a fine sound considering what it was reviewed in number 8 along with a short interview with Cam. I'm not sure what's up with the band at the moment. I think Mangled is sitting on the back burner for now. But if this tape is what we'll be missing, it's truly a shame. Grinding, noisy, aggressive death metal. Sub-basement and entirely inhuman vocals gurgle and moan over the chainsaw, hitting metal guitars and blasting whirlwind drumming. Lots of fucking noise going on here for sure. Simple music, but so heavy. Human compost makes your evil stepmother look light and bouncy. A word of caution to all you cynic atheist Suspiria fans. Technical excellence was never ever spoken along during the Human Compost sessions. So if you're into limp-wristed technical rock and roll, avoid Mangled like AIDS. Although someone like you probably already has it. Fucking brutal shit.
Oh, it doesn't say that.
Doesn't say that, no.
Where did I see that, guys?
I don't know.
I'm sure it was in that magazine.
Maybe it was the review of the rehearsal.
Oh, maybe, yeah. I remember because I never heard of that band, your band, and I was like, I gotta hear this band.
So yeah, man, make sure you guys Cemetery Filth. God damn, I had to get this. What's this one out? Unspeakable Acts Records. Oh man, those lyrics, I fucking can't even see it. Man, that's ridiculous. That's too small. For me at least. Oh my god. But Cemetery Filth, great band. Great band. So we're hanging out. I got my buddy Matt in the background, who you seen with the Mike DeSalvo interview. Way back, the first one. Yeah, that was 40 interviews ago already.
Crazy.
That was 40 interviews already.
That was before the lockdown.
Before everything happened. All right. Oh, hello there. What up? What are you doing?
Whoop!
Representing some ruin there.
Yeah. Figured I'm already ruined. Might as well do it. What up?
Might as well one-up yourself with a ruined shirt.
What up?
So, how you doing, my man?
I'm hanging in there, man. That's right.
That's fantastic. Good to hear.
Yeah.
Good to hear. So that show we were just watching there, the Central Illinois Fest, right?
Yep, that was right. I think I was at a theater in Urbana that back when I was in high school and college, they used to actually show movies there, and they had a dollar dog night there, and it was mayhem. It was beer and hot dogs everywhere. It was fucking great. So, but yeah, it was a great time. It was an excellent show. Couldn't believe it happened. Still don't. I'm watching it and I'm going, yeah, I still can't believe I was there, but I was. Obviously, there's evidence. Unlike 90% of the other shows we played, there's actual evidence of that one. So.
It's true though. There isn't much footage of IMPETIGO up online.
Well, we didn't play a lot. That's why. I mean, in the early days, we played 2 or 3 times a year, mostly in the same place, here and there and everywhere. And then the heavier and the grinder we got, the more, I don't know, the more disinterested people became. And then we started putting cannibals eating other people's genitals on flyers, and that kind of really shut things down for us locally. So we took our show on the road and started playing in places like the thriving metropolis of Indianapolis and, things like that. So never in town.
So because you guys were making those flyers back in the day, those cut and paste gore cannibal flyers, literally your fan base went down?
No, not the fan base, just the people who wanted to have anything to do with us went down. To get a show, to play a show anywhere at a bar, in a parking lot was a lot like it is now. Probably not as bad, but you had to be friends with the people who ran the places, and if you pissed them off, you put a flyer with a guy getting his genitals eaten by cannibals, and said you could buy the record at his record store, and he owned the only place in town to play, and he's also cheating on his taxes and selling marijuana paraphernalia under the counter, and the town of Normal or whatever, the government gets involved. Next thing you know, it's like, you are not welcome. So,
wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Like I said, not much has changed. I mean, I'm sure that even now, if the same thing happened, it would probably be worse. We'd probably have to go to 3 or 4 states away to get anybody to watch us play. So.
No, not nowadays. Come on, man. Nowadays.
I mean, I don't know. There's a lot of shows got shut down a couple of years ago for obvious reasons, and I think the climate is still kind of like, hey, if they're not safe, then why mess around with it?
Understandable. Yeah, totally. We got all the social justice warriors online that don't want to see nuts and cannibals.
Well, back then it was easier to rent like an Italian-American hall or something and put on a show with Gigi Allen, Bloody Mess, and the Scabs, and whoever the fuck else shows up, because nobody knew what was going on until this happening, and it's too late to do anything about it. So, a lot of those shows were kind of secret shows. Our very first show in Normal, which was recorded for our live demo, believe it or not, was actually a, what do you call it? It was an outdoor parking lot, like a fall festival kind of thing. And the town of Normal had rented one of those old trailers where the door opens up and you play inside the trailer and everybody stays in the parking lot. And for all they knew, a couple of acid hippie metal bands were playing. And we weren't as controversial then, but I did hold up a sign inciting the crowd to puke. And I'm sure a lot of people from the local government were there watching this going, what the hell's going on here? I mean, it was all, nobody knew anything. Now, thanks to Cannibal Corpse, anytime you see anything with blood dripping on it, you're like, oh, these are those death metal guys from the Ace Ventura movie. This can't be good, and they kind of play their little, games at that or whatever. But I guess to your point, though, The good news is they're more legitimate. I use the term loosely, like a whore or something. There are more legitimate venues to play in now where you don't have to be so sneaky about it.
Right. And and like you said, Ace Ventura is kind of known now anyway, so it's not that big of a deal.
Yeah, death metal's funny. I mean, even the other day I'm watching Community, and it's a Halloween episode, and they're all doing something crazy, and a guy comes on the radio and goes, "We interrupt your death metal to bring you some heavy news," and I'm going, "Okay, fine."
Right.
Fucking Amon
You
Of course.
metal.
Yeah. Let's play some Amon Amarth. Let's get heavy.
And I knew things had really gotten weird, like in the 2000s when someone would try to rickroll you, and you knew it, but you opened the video and it wasn't Rick Astley. It was like Immortal or something. That one gif of them doing all the head movements.
Yeah.
And like, oh, okay, fine. Yeah, I've been there, done that. Sure.
Yeah, that's funny. So, I mean, that's cool, though, that you bring up Bloody Mess and the Scabs. I'm totally a huge fan of those guys, and
oh, man.
And they're from your area, correct?
Yeah. Bloody Mess was the guy who brought Gigi Allen to the central Illinois area, mostly Peoria around there. I mean, Gigi had been showing up for a couple things in Chicago, and Bloody was involved in all that. I said, hey, why don't you come down? And, of course, those always ended in riots. It was kind of cool. But, Bloody was, lived in Peoria about an hour away, and I think he and Mark actually had some contact for a while. And I was kind of intimidated by the guy at first because he was a punk rock legend, and I'm like, give him a space, and he does his thing. And even by today's standards, it was pretty outrageous. I mean, Bloody was 100% punk rock at a time when pretty much 100% of the punk rockers had kind of, I don't know, the guys in Discharge are doing their King Diamond thing, and then there was, GBH were, playing arenas. It's like, well, what is, the Sex Pistols, everybody in the Germs is dead, just about. I mean, it was kind of old school at the time.
Yep.
Which sounds kind of shocking because it was the late 80s, just a few years removed from when all that happened.
Right.
And Bloody was just, we went to see him. I remember I was going north for something, and we stopped by, and he's playing at a park in Peoria. Again, that's how this shit happened, right? Someone's having a music festival in a park, a public park, and someone gets sneaky and puts Bloody on there. Don't worry, he's a performance artist. Whatever. And next thing you know, this guy's, everyone in the band is in drag, and he's like pulling his dick out and throwing beer at people, and throwing beer at people in a public park is actually controversial because you're not supposed to have beer in there anyway. Sure. Stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I walked up to the show. I said, "Hey, man, I'm Stevo. I'm like a big fan of your work. I'm trying to, hang in the background or something, but I really, really like you to do something with us one of these days." And he said, "Oh, yeah, sure, absolutely." And, several months later, we were recording our album, and, I had this song, Unadulterated Brutality. It was like the first song I wrote about Wizard of Gore. And I was just sitting there going, yeah, there's this noisy part in there, because, everybody was into noise at the time, and we had to have a couple of those. And I'm like, thinking, instead of doing a soundbite here, we should, Mark, hey, you think we could get Bloody to come in the studio and, like, do something for us? And he's like, oh, fuck yeah, he'd love it. And he showed up at this guy's house in the suburbs of Bloomington and in his basement, and, hey, what's up? And he said, so what do you want me to do? Sing backing vocals? I said, no, I want you to do something different. And I read him the lyrics of the song, and I kind of told him what it was about. And, hacking up chicks and, ripping guts out and that kind of stuff. And he was just like, he's like, I love this, man. This is great. And I'm like, fuck yeah, see what you can do. And he sat down on a couch in this guy's bar, which was next to his studio. And in like 3 minutes, he just wrote this poem. And he's like, you want to look at it? I said, nah, I want to hear you do it. So, we had the basic tracks already done. He got to see that. And we got to do the vocals and stuff like that. He did sing back up on a couple other songs too. But then this one part, and I'm like, okay, here you go. When I cue you, that's your time, And boom, I did it. And he fucking hit it in one take. It was fantastic. I was just like, you got to be fucking kidding me. This was my idea? Yep. Okay. So So yeah, and he loved it, man. He thought that was great. I mean, that's what a guy like that lives for is kind of be recognized, not for being a scary dude or an outcast one, but someone who can, well, I used the term performance artist as it was a slur earlier, but that's actually what it was.
Right.
Someone who could do something on the fly like that and stay in code and right on the line, and it turned out great. People still talk about that, and they're just like, that was fantastic. How'd that happen? I said, it just kind of happened. And literally, I mean, there was more playing involved, but you know what I'm talking about. It just kind of fell into place, and it was perfect. And, we played Indianapolis a little while later, and he came to the show and got on stage and did it with us. I was like, yeah, this is fucking great. And then a few years later, a few months later, I don't know, I'm too old to remember, he decided to record his album. Yeah, he had met Gacy. You guys know all of that. He was friends with Gacy. Yeah. He decided to record his album at the same studio we did our demo at. And I knew the dude, and I'm like, yeah, I'll come in and hang out or whatever. And next thing you know, man, he's like, hey, you're going to sing backing vocals. So on the 6th grade field trip album, there's a couple songs that I sang on. I have several autographed copies. He came to my house once when we all got shit-faced and we laughed about stuff. And I said, here, sign this. I just had him sign everything. Yeah, and that was a great album. That was like a fucking perfect punk rock album at the time, especially too. And we did that song, and you remember when you walk on the beach, cut your feet on the glass. That was my favorite song in the album, incidentally. And I got to sing on it. I was like, yeah, fucking A, come into therapy. And we remained friends for several years after that. Mark and I would go to his house and hang out and watch really fucking crazy videos. So, and he's just a great guy. Bloody is... Bloody is 100% Bloody, man. I mean, he is what you get, he's the man.
Totally. Yeah, because, I mean, whenever I received the ads and the letters from you guys back in the day, I remember always seeing Bloody Mess ads that came with them also. So,
that's right.
So I'd always... I wrote to Buddy at the time, and I ended up getting the 6th grade field trip tape.
Yeah.
And then the next 7-inch was on Black and Blue Records, and it had the Kenneth Bianchi poster that he drew up on there too.
Yeah.
But so that's cool that you were on the 6th grade. I got to go back and listen to that again. That's fucking.
Yeah, I sang on a couple songs.
Oh shit! Yeah. Oh, I didn't even.
Yeah, Nicky's on it and everything.
Oh man! Oh goddamn!
Yeah, I was there with him. They recorded the whole thing, and we're hanging out. As Dave Jost is the guy's name, the studio guy, but he was the executive producer on Horror of the Zombies. we had him come in the studio and gave him a couple bags of weed because nobody could get weed at the time except for Scott. Scott had the hookup, and he needed some, so I said, well, I need a favor, and Dave Jost, by the way, is the guy who helped me solve the puzzle I had in Wizard of Gore, the song, where the last verse, is it illusion or is it real? Yep. Is it your fame, your face I peel? I had that down. I didn't want to change the lyrics, but I couldn't squeeze it into the verse. I don't know what was wrong with me. I wasn't drinking or doing drugs at the time, so I was probably thinking about it too much. And I remember Dave behind the board going, hey, why don't you do it like this? Is it illusion? Is it real? Is it your fake or your face I peel? And I was like, yeah, that'll work. So Dave was a good guy, man. He was a fun guy. I don't know what the hell he's doing now. I could be dead.
But the end of that lyrics, it rang out.
Yeah, he nailed it, man. I didn't know what to do with that, man. I wrote it, did not want to change it. You're not changing this, but I didn't know how to squeeze it in there. And the stuff we wrote at the time, in our early days when we wrote stuff, we did a lot of vocals. But the stuff we wrote, I usually just had how the vocals were going to go in my head. And when we rehearsed, that's why the later rehearsals never had any vocals, because I never did vocals in rehearsal. Gotcha. So it didn't make any sense. I was doing this, you play here, and I'm chugging along. I was actually, it was like baseball. I was just kind of getting familiar with how to play it. So when I did sing, I didn't have to think about it.
Right.
Because, singing freaks me out a little bit. But when you don't have to think about it, it's easy. And we got in the studio, and that's the one thing I hadn't figured out in my head how that works. So it's kind of funny how that fell into place. But yeah, Bloody's an awesome guy. 100% great. Just all around good friend. Love the dude. He really helped us out. He certainly didn't have to, but death metal wasn't his thing, but it was, turned out.
Right on. Right on. Right on. So IMPETIGO, you guys started early.
Yeah, we started off actually as my teenage rock band. Oh no, let me take that back. I had been trying to get a couple bands going and never any luck. I had something in my head that nobody else wanted to do, and of course in college I met Mark, and I said, "Yeah, Mark, one of these days we'll start a band." But the problem is I'm flunking out of college, so I'm gonna have to move back home, which is an hour away. And he's like, "Yeah, that's cool." And he'd got, he'd kind of helped me out with the tape trading thing. I was kind of into it, but I didn't know the code, and he set me straight. And we'd been hanging out a lot and stuff like that. And then I moved back home, and I had bought a bass for like $75. It's right over in the corner. And a guy that I knew back in Decatur, sort of from other people, and all of a sudden he was into metal and I was into metal, and all of a sudden we had something to talk about, and started hanging out with him. And he was in a band, long story short, that he was in a band called Illinois that was named after a punk rock band he was in the early 80s. And they broke up, and I had started a punk rock band in the mid 80s called the Dead Trendies.
Right.
And Dead Trendies actually broke up. Well, I broke them. I split up. I said, "This is fucked up. We're not getting anywhere." And the members of Dead Trendies talked to Jimmy, this guy, and he actually joined the band in my place. And they got the one kid who was singing kind of got kicked out, and they got another kid we knew, and they became Necrophilia, which was the name of the band that they wanted to call Dead Trendies. And I'm like, "Yeah, we're never going to get any flyers up with the name Necrophilia. Dead girls don't say no. Yeah, that's not going to fly."
Right.
Dead Trendies is as controversial as I want to get. And they had, of course, Necrophilia, nobody wanted to do anything with. So they decided to use the name Illinois. So fast forward, that was 85. At 87, I came back into town, and Jimmy says, "Well, Illinois, we're playing a couple shows, and it would be nice to have an opening band. And I was just thinking we do something like SOD." And I'm like, "Yeah, okay." And of course, I had a bass. He knew I had bought a bass for $75. And so I said, "Fine, I'll come over Saturday and we'll hammer some stuff out." Well, I go over Saturday, and he and his friend from work, Pugsley, who wasn't into anything, we basically sat down and, well, he did mostly, but I kind of chipped in along the way, hammered out about 13 or 14 songs, like in about an hour. And then we ran through them once, recorded it on a tape player, and I'm listening to it back. We're listening to it back, and I said, "Yeah, we should release this as a demo, man. I mean, everything sounds fine on here." And he was like, "Okay." So I made a cover, and I made flyers, and that Sergeant Rock was born. On the very first day we got together again, we released this demo. And we played an opening act for Illinois, and Jim decided he didn't want to sing anymore, so I started singing. And yeah, I'm doing the Dan Loker, Blaine from Accused, kind of a little bit of Slaughter in there. Just kind of, it was all basic, mosh type riffs. And that was in February, and by the time June had come, we had we had two shows coming up with Illinois. One was a 4th of July thing, and the other was a juice bar in Peoria. And Jim just decided he had 4th of July thing. He's like, "I don't know if he was feeling good. I don't know what's happening. I don't want to play the 4th of July thing." I'm like, "Okay, fine, but we're going to play a Peoria show, right?" He's like, Yeah, we're going to do that. And because these two shows were all based on a show we had in Decatur, again, in a park. There's nowhere else to play. In a park. And these guys from Peoria came down, and their band played too. They said, "We want you to play." They're talking to us. I said, "Yeah, well, we're a package deal with Illinois. Get them to play too." "Well, we just want you guys to play." "Okay." So Sergeant Rock's playing in Peoria, Illinois isn't.
Right.
Okay. I didn't feel like doing it, and I'm like, "Okay, that's fine." So I called Mark. "Mark, what's up, man? I ain't seen you in a couple months. Yeah, hey, how you doing? I said, Mark, you want to play a show July 31st? And he's like, what? I said, yeah. I said, play a show July 31st. We need a drummer. I'll get a hold of Malin. I called Dan Malin, who was in Naked Hippie. I said, hey, you want to play drums for us? We have a show July 31st. Peoria, sure. I drove to Bloomington. Me and Mark got Dan's garage. We had 2 practices, 15-minute set. We took the Sergeant Rock songs, and I wrote different lyrics for them. And I said, okay, we'll call ourselves something else, like Slow Death. He says, as a Slow Death comic book is sitting in front of him on his desk. Slow Death sounds like a good name. You know, I like the Q song. We're good. On the way to the show, it's July 31st, 1987. On the way to the show, I tell Mark, you know, we'll listen to Mighty Sphincter tape. And I love these guys. Mighty Sphincter rule. R.I.P. Doug Clark. He just passed away a couple months ago. And Mighty Sphincter had a song called Impetigo. And it's a Mighty Sphincter song, but it's with their punk rock singer, Ron Reckless. And it's just about making fun of this guy who thinks he's so punk rock, he carves the name of his favorite band in his arm. And by doing so, he gets Impetigo, and there's nothing he can do. That's the song. And I told Mark, I said, hey, that'd be a pretty badass name for a song. He's like, well, what is it? And I said, it's an infectious disease, and in advanced stages can cause your skin to rot and fall off. And he looks at me and he goes, that's great. So we show up to the show. There's flyers all over the place. Slowed up, blah, 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 blah. And I wrote it, and I told Dan, hey, Dan, we changed our name, and I write it in a rock on the sidewalk. That's our name now. And Dan's like, yeah, whatever. And I tell everybody, we're here, but we're not Slow Death. We're Impetigo. They're like, oh, okay, whatever. I mean, it was a juice bar in Peoria. Anything goes. Well, I got the mic. Some of these people had seen us in Decatur a couple months ago. I said, well, we were Sergeant Rock, but now we're Impetigo. Here we go. And we played 15 minutes. And Mark stood in front of a fan. It was as interesting as it could be. And then we spent the next 4 months in Dan's garage working out that set, which was horrible, and the rest of the songs. And then we played the live show, which was our demo I was talking about earlier, and that was it, you know.
That one.
All we need is cheese.
All we need is cheese.
That's right.
1987, right?
1987, and that is the censored version, correct?
Yes. Yes, it is, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was one tune had to come off.
That's right. My luck, just my luck. Guy picks a cover song by a guy who, how was I to know 20 years later he'd be trying to sue everybody who even mentions his name in public.
Oh, my gosh.
I don't know.
So,
still one of my artists. He's still one of my favorite artists, but I really just can't forgive him for that. It's like, dude, are you kidding me? You know,
right?
You fuck, yeah. Anyway.
Yeah, I know, right? Yeah, like Impetigo are going to become millionaires and make money off of that cover tune.
Well, that was kind of my first. You know, Mark told me about this. It was in 2007. I said, calm down. We haven't made a penny out of this, and we don't have a penny. Now this is up on MP3 sites. I'm like, show me where we made any money, and we'll be fine. And we talked to the lawyer, and the lawyer was kind of like, he's really just doing this to get you stopped. So I said, fine. We called Kirby, Obscene Productions, or, you know, take that song off the CDs, you know, put a marker through it. Next time you press it, don't put it on there, yada, yada. And since then, we haven't mentioned his name or song or anything. So
leave it at that.
Yep.
So you guys put this demo out. Then how does it start rolling after that? Then
it doesn't roll very far because I was in a really silly phase at the time. I don't blame anyone but myself. But for the first few months, it was really cool. We'd written a couple newer songs, and then I kind of said, well, what else can we do with this? And I kind of went through an experimental phase where we used to play, it was a cover of Frank Zappa's Help I'm a Rock, but it was done to the tune of Jam On It by Nucleus. That's just an example.
Wow.
And
Nucleus is awesome.
Yeah. So Mark had a plan. Mark's just like, you know what? It's like, we need to stick with the grindier, heavier stuff. And I'm not exaggerating when I say this. He literally forced me to sit in my apartment and listen to nothing but Napalm Death Scum, and Carcass Reputrefaction until I got my head straight.
That's awesome.
Other thing is I turned 21 in 1988, so obviously, as most everybody else does when they're 21, they quit drugs, they quit drinking, they quit everything. And I just totally said, you know what? I said, the gloves are off. I have a couple ideas, and I kept a few notebooks, and I dismissed the Pizza trilogy, which I was writing before all this happened, but I kept one song, Bitch Death Teenage Mutant Monster from Hell.
Yes.
That's the only survivor of my Pizza trilogy, and that was one of the songs we started working on. And next thing you know, I was writing a thing about circus freaks, and the only song that survived from that was Mortado. There's a couple of examples of some things I was working on at the time, but once I started focusing, and once Mark and I started getting more on the same page like we were in the beginning, that's when things started rolling. We recorded the Giallo demo. We plugged our guitars straight into the board, which I will never not regret, but hey, whatever.
Hey.
And $15 an hour. Probably can't tell you, there's the master tape sitting right up there on the shelf. And
Oh, fuck.
and the demo it was hard for us. We had no money, and all the money we had we spent on recording the demo. So we had these tape collections. Mark and I each took about 100 of our tapes collectively, erased them, and dubbed copies of the demo to send to magazines and stuff. And we charged like $2 for it. Unfortunately, lost in that project was Mark's solo project, PGLS, which since then I've found the basic tracks, but I've never found the finished complete version. It was 2 songs, Pea Green Leisure Suit and Psychokinetic Gummy Bears. Never found it. But he erased over, he tipped over it. He didn't figure anybody would ever want to hear it, let alone me. And so we sent all these tapes out, and we just spent every dime we had on postage for it. And we were like, well, the mix, then by that time, nothing was happening. The mix sounded bad. We went in and remixed. We remixed it not once but twice. And I think we were done with the second remix when finally Whisper of Darkness got a hold of us. They did the Nunslaughter EP and I think Funeral EP also at the same time. They said, hey, you want to do a 7-inch? I'm like, yeah, fuck yeah, we just got done remixing the tapes. This is great. So we've been friends with Richard from Wild Rags for a while, and we kind of, hey, and he's like, nah, I don't think so. And we started talking to him about the Whisper of Darkness thing, and he heard the remix. He's like, yeah, you know what, maybe we should do a 12-inch with you guys. And I'm like, that would be awesome. And and next thing you know, we're doing an album for Wild Rags. It was awesome. It was a really good deal. Mark called me, he said, Richard wants to do an album. I said, well, since nobody else will do anything with us, why the fuck not? No, actually, that's not true. Actually, it is true. Nobody else wanted to do anything with us. But we finally, we did twist his arm a little bit. We're just like, look, you can work with us. We're not, going to pull you any shit. I mean, obviously, our aspersions are not in getting signed to, well, it wasn't earache at the time. We're not going to get signed to Combat.
Right. So,
don't worry about it. We'll pay for the recording and whatever else you want to do, that's fine. And then, over the course of about a year or so, it turned into an album, and the rest is history, I guess.
So that was Ultimo.
That was Ultimo, yeah. I'd like to go back and remix it again, but why bother? I do have the original mix. Long story short, we had mixed it we recorded with this guy who was a nice guy, but he knew nothing about the metal, and I kept bitching about how the guitars needed to be heavier in the mix, and he did the pencil cup thing with me. Anyone who's been to a studio knows when you hear this speech, you're in trouble. But the guy who brings this pencil cup out, I'll get it.
Yes, please.
Well, he brings a pencil cup out, and he says, now see, your recording is like a cup full of pencils, and pretty soon you just can't, you can only put so many pencils in it before there's no room for anything else. And the first thing I thought is, well, what the hell does this mean? And the second thing I thought is, all right, whatever. Let's just try and do what we can, and we'll do it. And Mark and I, we'd listen to the tape in the car. We'd listen to it on a boombox. We'd listen to it on a stereo. And it's like, we're like, hey, it sounds okay, but we really want to try to go back and force the issue on the guitars. So we had mastered it partially. We hadn't done the intro, so we did a mix. We did a mix. We put on a 2-track, and we had that. I had a cassette tape of it. And we went back in and we talked to him. Said, Kurt, you really need to get the program and get the pencil cup out of here, and let's just try and figure out what we can do to make these guitars heavier. Because for us, it's about the guitars. And he said, okay, let's try a couple things. And he was really willing to work with us. Well, what he did was he changed the gate on the fucking drums. And I made them sound like... the guitars were heavier, it seemed, but then the drums are all jacked up. We're like, you know what, fuck it sounds pretty good. It sounds better than the Morbid Angel album. What do we got to complain about? And that's what happened. And I still have the tape of the original mix, and I do think it sounds better. The guitars don't sound too bad now that I hear with my 50-something-year-old ears, and the drums sound a lot better than they did on the other one, but who knows when that'll be surfacing.
So the original mix wasn't the official Wild Rags Ultimo album?
That's right. Yeah, it was never released.
Gotcha.
The tape has no intros on it. It has all the 1, 2, 3, 4, everything. Everything's in it, but...
Oh.
I'm not saying nothing's happened. I'm not saying something's going to happen with it, but I'm not saying nothing's going to happen.
Right. So, you guys were horror movie obsessed already, I'm assuming, correct? And
oh, yeah.
So,
I mean, we did the live demo. It was almost 45 minutes long, so we had put in a bunch of clips from Microwave Massacre and a bunch of movies we were watching at the time just to fill up the rest of the tape. That was the original version of Giallo.
Okay.
And then, we did of All We Need Is Cheese. And then, we did Giallo, obviously, by that time. I'm like, doing the Freak Show stuff and the Pizza Trilogy, and I'm like, more songs about Herschel Gordon Lewis movies would be better for us. And, and Bitch That Teenage Mutant Monster from Hell, incidentally, was a horror movie that was in the Pizza Trilogy, and a movie about a guy who creates a giant ball of slime that goes around and kills frat boys and sorority girls. So the horror thing was really important to us. I mean, we were listening to bands like, Mortician, obviously, and even before that, Genocide, they were Repulsion and Slaughter. All the bands we like to listen to were doing horror movie songs. And,
but what made you want to start putting intros into it, though? Because it wasn't a huge thing at that time, right?
Well, yeah, the intros. Let me think about this for a second. The intros, there was a specific influence for the intros, and it was probably Jim Jones and the Kool-Aid Kids, which was a band we listened to.
Wow.
Constantly. I can tell you for real, Mark can confirm this. There was like 2 weeks where we had this worn out 3rd generation tape of Jim Jones and the Kool-Aid Kids. One guy I knew in North Carolina actually called a friend of mine's house and said, have Stevo come. I didn't have a phone. Have Stevo come here at 7 o'clock. I have something to tell him. And I went to this guy in his house, and in his phone call, this guy from North Carolina called me. He said, do you know where I am now? I'm watching Jim Jones and the Kool-Aid Kids. And I'm like, yeah, but I'm not. So thanks for calling. Anyway, we listened to that album a lot. And there's, there's one intro in particular for Manufactured Christ. It's actually an intro and an outro. And they had a couple of weird sound bites in there. One where the guy on acid was going, I don't know, everybody started looking at me like I didn't have a spleen or something, and the guy up there going, yeah, and they all knew it, yeah, I hear you. Stuff like that on there. And I'm like, that would be pretty good. And Mark obviously was thinking the same thing. And when we put the Giallo demo, he's like, I'm gonna compose a a little like I got 6 or 7 sound bites from like this Chillers movie I just rented and Rawhead Rex and stuff. I'm like, fuck yeah, that'd be great. And so he brought that on a cassette tape to the studio, and that was the intro, the Giallo demo. That I think that was probably our first official intro usage. And then by the time we were getting ready to do, and then we did the 7-inch Whisper Darkness, and we actually took some of those intros and put them on there, kind of made them sound better. And then when we were working on Ultimo, I had already had a tape. I had a 90-minute tape full of stuff I was going to use, and I'm like, yep, this is for this song, this is for that song, it'll be fine. Sick of those complaints about the one in unadulterated brutality being almost as long as the song that I'm over it.
Gives a shit. Who gives a that just adds to the album though, and just the atmosphere.
Yeah. I think so. I like the intros. A lot of people don't like them, but the thing about the intros is, for me, even at that time, it got to be kind of like a form of performance art. Like the one for Bloody Pit of Horror it's a combination of several different movies, and I had to sit there and think about them. Like, okay, which female beating scene do I want to use first, and which one do I want to use second? You know, kind of on and on and on. And so it was kind of like it was a composition into itself.
Right.
And then there was the outliers. Like when we were doing Horror of the Zombies, there was intros I had that I literally didn't have songs for. And Street Cleaner was kind of important to me. I had some clips from Necromantic, but they don't talk very much in that movie.
Nope.
And when they do, it's in German.
Yep.
And, at the time, the only way you could get Necromantic was on a 20th generation VHS dub. So there's a lot of buzzing and noise in it.
Yep.
And so I'm like, well, this is a song about 2 lovers who hate people, living people. They only like dead people. And why don't I use that thing from Deadbeat at Dawn? And that was one of the samples I had collected, and I'm like, this actually is perfect, and no one's ever brought it up, but I'll bring it up now and ruin it for you.
Please.
There's a siren. There's a siren in the beginning of that.
Yep.
And in Necromantic, the guy works for Joe's Street Cleaner agency, and they have a siren. So there's a connection there, and that's what it is.
Sweet. Right on.
Yeah. If you take it out of context of the movie, Bone Crusher, who's doing the talking, is actually not Bone Crusher from Deadbeat at Dawn. He's not Joe or the guy from Necromantic, but he's a guy who works for the same company.
Right.
And he and his buddy, they're garbage men. They're out there scooping it up. He's getting high on the job, ain't nothing compared to the rush of killing someone. I mean, they're street cleaners for crying out loud. Picking up dead bodies. That was the connection for me.
And it totally worked, man. Oh my God. Holy fuck, did it ever. So who ended up doing the artwork for Ultimo Mundo?
Ultimo was me. It was a drawing. I was doing all the art at the time. I did the drawing, and then my good friend Cannibal Jim used Dr. Barton's dyes to color it. I didn't do color. I'm not good at that. And he's like, yeah, you give it to me, and I'll put the color on it. I mean, that's how we did it.
Yep.
No computers. And so I drew, that cover took me about a month. I had working on it in my apartment when I wasn't working. And Jim had it done in a month or so, and then we sent it off to Wild Rags with everything else. Yeah, that's the one. And that was when the next round of trouble started.
Oh.
So, yeah, so Richard calls me. By then I had moved to Gibson City, not too far away, but Richard calls me, and he's just like, now I had a phone, so I could talk to Richard on the phone. He'd sent us the letter, and he'd said, man, I support you guys 100%. Whatever you want to do, I'll do it. I have this distribution deal with Relativity. I don't give a shit about that. I don't know what they're going to think of this cover. I don't know what anybody's going to think about this cover. Relativity, at the time, was screwing Richard C., and he didn't know it. Well, he kind of knew it. Let me rephrase that. With all respect to Richard C., he knew it. But, in that kind of relationship, you want to see how far you can go before you really get fucked. And he had a deal with Relativity. which was not really a deal. He was getting screwed again. And he didn't, I don't think he was worried that was going to fuck things up with them, but I think he was just trying to be honest with us. Right? A lot of people say, Richard was a double dealer. No, he wasn't. Richard was trying to tell us, if I don't sell any copies of your record, this is why. Okay? He said, if this doesn't sell very well, I'm telling you right now, this is why. It's because people may not carry it because of the cover. And I'm like, okay, cool, that's great. He's like, whatever you guys want to do. And I said, I want to stick with the cover. The cover is the theme, right? It's everything from 7 different cannibal movies, and even though all the songs aren't about cannibal movies, it kind of works with what we're doing here. It's not just third world cannibal films. It's the whole exploitation, that whole series of exploitation genre that we're trying to glorify here.
Right.
It's like, okay, fine. I'm just letting you know, and I appreciate that, and like I said, you can say what you want about Richard C., but he was trying to tell us that he wasn't going to be able to sell any money and give us an opportunity to change our minds. And, put a cover like Arcane did or something. I don't know what the next thing was. Anyway, so then about a month later is when I get the other phone call from him. He's like, well, you know what? The guy that does my printing, he won't fucking handle this.
Oh.
He won't touch it. He won't touch it. He says he's a Christian. I think he's lying. I just think he doesn't want to go to jail. As this is about a couple years after the whole Dead Kennedys Frankenchrist thing. And people who printed that stuff were getting in trouble for it.
Yep.
So this guy was like, yeah, I don't want to fucking handle it. I don't want anything to do with it. Okay, fine. And Richard didn't really have anywhere else to go to. His costs were pretty much fixed. It's like any overhead comes from the store, goes towards the label. Any overhead goes towards the label, goes towards the store. It's like you have to, the profit has to go somewhere, and it's not going in finding a printer who's going to charge me 5 times as much to print this album as my other guy who won't print it will do. So I said, okay, Richard, tell you what. I said, I'll draw another cover. Give me a week, and I'll have something else. So I took my stuff to work, ran a gas station, and while I was working, I drew the second cover, which in a lot of ways actually turned out better than the first. Not just, it was not as explicit, but I think the thematic part of it actually represented the cannibal movies more the way I would have liked to than the other one did. There's in that pile of stuff behind the dude, there's all kinds of little hidden things. There's a real, this is the Green Inferno on it, stuff like that.
Cool.
Film reel, all this stuff from Cannibal Holocaust is in there somewhere. And but it wasn't as explicit, but it was good. And, Cannibal Jim lived in Peoria, 2 hours away. So I tell him in my car, like in the middle of the night, to get this drawing to Cannibal Jim. Said, I need you to do your thing. Okay. He drove back in a day. He came back the next day, and he had it done, and I sent it to Rich. I said, go with this. Use this. The cassette art was supposed to be the guy getting his wiener eaten by the cannibals, and the album was the Wall of Rape. And we couldn't use either one. So the new art became used. And, it sucks, but it's everybody who's in a band that does shit like we do has had to deal with something like this at one point in time or another.
Sure. But that's back in the day, though. I mean, everything was controversial. Everything was and shit was, and boundaries were getting pushed even more because of what was going on, right? So during this time, right, when everyone's kind of like especially you guys, all of a sudden it's like, well, let's push the horror boundary. Let's push the the Euro trash and see what's going on. And still at that time, people are like, holy fuck, Cannibal Holocaust. We can't do nothing with this.
Some people, back then, if you weren't ready for it, even if you like the heavy shit, Cannibal Holocaust made grown men who loved gross horror films cry.
Yep.
The first time I watch it, I'm like, what's? But we made the most of it. I mean, for us, it was kind of an opportunity to make lemonade. I mean, we kind of took it from a William Castle, Jerry Groves, Herschel Gordon Lewis kind of thing. Yep. And then we put banned in 31 countries on our flyers, and we fucking meant it.
It's true, though.
We were made men. We didn't get shot in the head like a dude man on Goodfellas. We were made men. Nothing bad could happen to us now because we had been, fucked by this more than once in many different ways, and we put banned in 31 countries on our flyers, and we are not kidding. That was not a joke. That was for real. Truth in advertising.
And that's and it's just like when Last House on the Left started making its rounds. It's the movie. It was just you got to see this movie. You got to see this movie. It's only a movie. It's only a movie, right? And it was the same thing with when Cannibal and everything and stuff started pushing the boundaries with the gore and horror and everything like that. It was still taboo, and everybody was still shitting their pants. But
right. And even years later, the same stuff was going on. I don't know if anyone's ever heard the story, but when Sinister Slaughter was released, Sinister Slaughter was a monumental recording by Macabre for quite a few reasons. I mean, it was the last thing ever recorded at the Universal Recording Studios in Chicago, where Manowar had recorded, and a lot of other bands. I mean, they were literally boarding up the windows while they were packing up their gear, and that's how closed it was. And it was the Macabre's first dealing with Nuclear Blast. And there were thousands of copies of Sinister Slaughter that were not allowed to leave Germany. When that album was released, German customs had seized every single outgoing package because of the album cover.
Right.
The album cover got them looking at the songs. They're like, no. In Germany, we do not condone this sort of shit. And Marcus had his hands full with that one. I don't know how he ever managed to talk them out, but it was a serious situation for a while. It was like this album's done. It's finally released, but no one's getting it because Steiger can't ship copies out of Germany.
Wow.
And of course, he was registered with GEMA and all the European music industry bigwigs, and they were not happy with him. And it was, if there's a German mafia, it's the German music industry for sure. I mean, you piss them off, you're done for good. And it was a serious situation. I really don't know how it got resolved, but it eventually did. But even then, it's just like one wrong move and you're branded for life.
Holy shit! Sinister Slaughter too. That was the Sgt. Pepper album cover too.
That's right. Yeah.
of all the serial killers all over it. Yeah. So obviously, as soon as you pick out one face, you're like, holy shit, these guys are condoning everything that's bad about society right now.
And I can't remember precisely what the issue boiled down to. I don't think there's a picture of Hitler on the album cover, although I think there was on Sgt. Pepper's, but I may be wrong about that. Don't quote me.
Right.
But it was that they started looking at that record and they're like, no. Not auf Deutsch.
Wow. So Ultimo comes out. You guys... on Wild Rag Records, that came out.
Yeah.
So it was it well received?
It was. Let's put it this way. Max from Sepultura gave it a pretty good review in Metal Hammer. The rest of the Metal Hammer staff didn't like it. One guy went on a rant about us, how we were glorifying oppression, and the third world thing offended him, I think. I don't know. He must not be a movie fan. But it was well received. It wasn't well distributed because, of course, by then the whole thing with Relativity went, Rich had enough of the fucking, and they'd had enough of trying to fuck him, and that was that. But there was, it got a good response. The people that we thought would like the record loved it. And the people who we never expected to like the record thought it was a piece of shit. And that's fine. I mean, that was what we were doing then in the 80s, in the mid-80s, is we weren't making records for everybody else to like. We were just making stuff that our friends would like. I mean, that was, that's like Bill Steer mentioned it in an NME interview in like 88 or 89 or something. He's like, this isn't music for you. This is music for us. I mean, what kind of a person would listen to Bowling Balls in My Back Seat by AMQA? Well, we would, but nobody else would, right? And The Accused, they never expected anybody who liked the Dead Kennedys or or even the Sex Pistols to listen to their shit. It was just for them and their friends. Yep. And that's kind of... So amongst the people that we thought would enjoy the record, they liked it.
Right.
We were happy with that.
Yeah, totally. And you guys started waving the horror flag also. So, yeah.
Yeah. I think we weren't one of the. I don't want to say we were one of the first, even. I want to say we were relatively early adopters. Again, there were bands like Repulsion and Gore from Michigan, and The Accused, to mention a few.
Sure.
Septic Death sort of did.
Yeah.
There were a lot of bands who were already kind of doing it.
But you were outright, literally, like, this is an Umberto Lenzi song. This is a Ruggero Deodato song.
Yeah, and I think a lot like Mortician and bands like. And I keep mentioning Mortician because that really. Maybe it's because you got a Mortician customer high. I don't know, but that really kind of was. That was right around then. That 89, 90 time frame is really when there were about 20 bands or so, us included, who just kind of said, "This is where we're happy." I mean, if you sit around watching horror movies all day, what else are you gonna do?
Pretty much.
We're not trying to change the world. Our politics are all fucked up. Phantasm. Songs about Phantasm never gets old.
Yeah, ever.
Anyone who says it gets old doesn't like it.
Yeah. It's so true, man.
Inside, they don't like it. If a band plays this stuff and then all of a sudden goes, well, we're doing a concept album about the northern gods and the reign of wizardry, and I'm like, you never liked it.
Nope.
You didn't.
Yeah.
Nope. You never liked it.
Yeah.
You just revealed yourself. You don't like it. It's fun. Now, if you want to start another band and do songs about the northern gods, realm of wizardry, ice castles, and video games, and Sega Genesis shit, fine. But if your band is this and then you do that, it's like, I don't know what to think about that, except for that you were never into it to begin with.
Right.
Fuck you, Carcass.
Yeah. So you guys end up going on to next Faceless.
Right. So Faceless was Richard wanted to do another album. And this time around, he said, I'll pay for the studio. That was, for us, again, we were made now. We were made now. The sales of Ultimo were as strong as they could be, but I think based on the response, we talked, like I said earlier, we talked Richard into working with us, and because we felt like he was a guy we could work with. There was no bullshit about it, and we proved ourselves to him. We had a mutual trust. We didn't break it, and he didn't break it, and he said, we're doing their other album. I'll pay for the recording. And I was like, fantastic. Got a $1,500 budget. How's that sound?
Beautiful.
Woo! That sounds good. So I said, here's the deal, though. I don't like the place we went to last time, and I'm not going back there. I don't want to hear about the pencil cups anymore. I'm done with this shit. I want to go high class, but I've been hearing stories about this guy in Champaign, and I want to give him a shot. Dave Jost knew who he was. Guy that worked with us on our demos and stuff, and said, yeah, you should go talk to Rubel. Mark Rubel ran a place called Pogo Studio. And I told Richard, I said, there's a place I want to go to, but I can't afford it. So you'll pay for that, and let's do a test something. Maybe release it as a 7-inch or something. Richard loved the idea. Anytime you come up with an idea before Richard that he'll like, he loves it even more. I mean, Richard's like, I just got to think of this shit. And I even had him with hello, because I told him, I said, hey, you know what? You can release it on a tape with these songs on it, and the 7-inch with those songs on it. And he was like, fucking hey, I love it. Let's go. Because it was his idea to do Ultimo. The LP was going to have all this bass set of songs and 2 songs, A and B, and the cassette was going to have all the bass songs and 2 songs, C and D. So there were 2 songs on the album that weren't on the cassette, 2 songs on the cassette that weren't on the album. It made perfect sense to me.
Sweet.
I thought it was nutty, but I'm like, you're the man. You do what you want.
Yeah.
And then we're going to have 2 different covers, so everybody wins. Now they screwed up the song titles on the printing, but that's just the curse of Ultimo. This time around, I'm like, let's do this. Let's record an EP. You take care of it, and we'll try this place out. We'll see what happens. So he said, okay, fine. So we went to Pogo Studio and talked to Mark Rubel, and first thing I asked him, I'm looking around the studio, and I said, I don't see any fucking pencil cups here. He's like, nope, you're not done. You walk into the studio and the place blows your mind. His place was in downtown Champaign, a really, really old building that used to have a theater. The front part of it used to be a theater, and it had been renovated and had shops. He owned the whole building, and he occupied a space in the back of it, and he had all the basement. And the front part of the building was a vintage guitar shop. So we walk in there, and I'm looking at like $6,000 Gibson Firebirds on the wall, a wall of orange amps before anybody else, except for anyone who'd ever watched a Black Sabbath on Beat Club video, knew what an orange amp was. And I'm like, oh, that's pretty awesome. And he's like, hey, you guys can use them if you want. And I'm like, no thanks. But what's that? That's a blown amplifier. I'm like, all right, we'll get to that in a minute. And a lot of stuff we had to sit down with him, and he seemed, he didn't know much about death metal, but he seemed willing to learn. And I'm like, okay, here's the deal. It's grindy, it's growly, it's gross. It's all this, real fast, real slow, down-tuned, lots of distortion. I like to double track the bass, right? I like to do a clean track and a distorted track in an amp, right? So we mash them together. It's the Scott Carlson sound.
Yeah.
That's how Scott did it. That's how I did it on all the stuff. So that's how we got to do it. That's the way I like to do it. Our drummer's a maniac. We don't want to shield him too much, but I like to do the vocals this way, and I'm an asshole in the studio. I'm not going to hold back on you. And he's like, I can understand that. I've worked with guys who are probably bigger assholes than you were, and I said, I'm sure you are. I'm not saying I want to be on that list, but if I am, I don't mind. And then we went in and recorded a Faceless EP. We recorded those songs. We had a new song that was all right, and then we recorded a couple of the Ultimo songs just to see if we get a feel for how it worked in the studio. Oh, that turned out great. Richard loved it. We said, all right, we're in. We're going to be back here in a few months to record a full-length album. Mark was like, bitchin'. That's great. So so Faceless was actually a tryout that we allowed Rich to make a couple bucks on,
right,
or whatever. And actually the EP was more popular than I realized it would be. I had drawn some artwork. And once again, the guy had a dong hanging out. And Richard said, yeah, we need to get rid of the dongs. So I had to get a PMT shot, which anyone who's in photography knows, that's just a black and white photo of your artwork. And I literally took white out, and I drew a pair of underpants on Mr. Organs. And the 7-inch came out. The tape was really popular, though, and I think that's because Mark's like, hey, we should use some of these Mexican gore mags. We had a couple of them laying around. I'm like, yeah, that'd be great.
Yep.
Richard got his guy to do a little work on it, at IMPETIGO, where it said Alarma before, so he wouldn't get sued. And the cover of the EP is probably the most famous thing about the EP. And the picture that was used in the cassette, I'll have you know, was taken on Circle Avenue, which is where I lived, of course. Anyone used to write to us back in the old days knows 1602 Circle Avenue.
Right.
And 5 minutes before that picture was taken, I'd just been told that Dad had killed himself.
Wow.
Mark found out. We knew everything by mail. Mark had just gotten his mail and opened it before he came over, and he said, dude, I just got a letter. Dad killed himself. And I was like, oh, fuck. So that look on my face is, wow, Dad killed himself.
Okay. Wearing a Sam Hain shirt.
Absolutely. And jeans with not very many jeans left in them. low mileage. Or high mileage, actually.
Yeah, because you got Stevo's at 1602 Circle Ave, Bloomington, Illinois.
Yep. That's Circle Avenue itself. And it's still there. There are people who go to all the places we did our photo shoots at and stuff like that. Listen to me. Photo shoots as if it was something. There are people who go around all these places and get their picture taken there.
Right.
Yeah, I'm sure that happens a lot, but yeah. There's one guy, he actually did some of the video for us for the anniversary DVD, and he used to send me pictures. he and his friends would go to the cemeteries where we did the photo shoots for horror, and they'd all be doing the same poses. I'm like, this is hilarious.
No. Yeah.
And you put a picture of them standing in the street in the exact same spot. Trees are a little bit bigger, but you know how that goes.
Yeah, there's the...
Well, that's St. Mary's Cemetery in Bloomington, Illinois, right behind Circle Avenue, incidentally. It's about a 5-minute walk from Circle Avenue where the other picture was taken.
So how come you wanted to use a Mexican newspaper cover instead of something you drew? Is it just because...
It was Mark came up with the idea. He said, we should just put one of these on there. I said, yeah, that's absolutely fucking sick. I mean, we love those things. And we, people are always like, hey, send us free records. And we're like, hey, no, nothing's free, but send me some of those stupid-ass gross gore mags you guys got in the supermarkets there. So we get bundles of them. Oh, yeah, you'll get a tape for that. Sure. So, we started collecting that shit and just, that it's called Faceless because of the song. And we're like, yeah, that guy certainly looks faceless to me. And, I figured I had, in some ways that was really pushing the envelope on the whole censorship. But I'm like, look, obviously I can't stay away from the dicks. So why don't we just use that?
You can't get enough of the dicks, eh?
Yeah, because you know what? It's like, no one's ever said it to me before, but I'm sure there are some people that think that the original Ultimo art is offensive because there are women getting sex had with them against their will on there. But the thing that nobody liked about that wasn't that. They didn't like the dicks.
Wow.
And they didn't like people eating the dicks. I mean, there's a dick on a stick on a campfire there, and that's what people did not like the dicks.
Wow.
I could have just done a thing with 100 women getting raped, and
no big deal.
I don't know if they'd have been fine with it, but it was the dicks they did not like. Everyone's got one. If you haven't got one, you probably got one. Yeah. So help.
And I'm sure you've gotten one, even if you don't have one. So
sure.
Right. So. So with the Faceless, you ended up getting legendary artists to redo the cover for their later Faceless releases.
Yeah, so for the Morbid Records stuff, fast forwarding, they wanted to reissue our stuff. It never did really have a legitimate German or European release. Ultimo did, but that was the next deal Richard got screwed on, was by Semaphore. And Semaphore basically released all his stuff and he never saw a penny from it or anything. Yeah. But they never had a really legitimate release in Europe. So Morbid was willing to do it. And we were like, yeah, sure, we can, definitely. You want to do something fresh? I mean, I wouldn't mind, having the same artwork and everything and the same songs, the same mix, all that shit. But we should do something different because, in my opinion, it's like, I'm not so anxious to buy a reissue of Fighting by Thin Lizzy if it's got the exact same songs and the same cover, sure. And even if it's remastered. Remastered doesn't really mean much. So, I'm not going to buy it. But if it's got different artwork, a couple extra songs, yeah, sign me up.
Sure.
So with all the reissue stuff, we're trying to kind of follow the same deal. It's like if you're the only game in town, there should be something different about it. So when Morbid wanted to do it, Mark came up with the idea. I said, well, I talked to Chaz Balin, and he'd love to do new covers for us. And I'm like, yeah, well, I'd love him to do it too. So, so Chaz did the covers, the new covers for Ultimo and Faceless and For the Zombies. And that was really awesome because I've been a Chaz Balin fan since the 80s, and I'm like, couldn't believe he'd draw my shit, It wasn't like he was touching me, but he was talking about it.
Yep. Oh, totally, man. And
yeah. If Heather Locklear doesn't sleep with you, she wants to. Kind of makes you feel good,
It totally does. And especially Chaz. Like I went on a big rooting through my Chaz merchandise too, and I used to write to him back in the Deep Red days when he was doing his videotape distribution and all that. So I brought out all my flyers, and then I was like, I'm going to look through my gore zones. And then I was like, I'm going to pull out my Deep Red Horror handbooks and all that other stuff. And I have it all, man. I ended up getting one of his artworks tattooed on my arm and everything. Like, I mean, Chaz Balloon is just one of those guys. If you're underground horror guy, that he was the man to bring to light all this sleaze in the background that Fangoria was kind of treading on, but not enough. And Chaz was writing for Gorezone, which was the side label of Fangoria, and he was the ones that was writing the articles about the coolest fucking movies ever.
And more people were buying Gorezone at the time than were buying Fangoria for that reason.
Exactly.
And that was, again, like I said before, like in the late 80s, that's kind of where all of us were, you know. We were all read Deep Red and Draculina and the Slaughter Times and stuff like that. And, you know, I mean, I had a fanzine in 86, 87 called Splatterzine. I mean, that was our lives anyway. So, again, that was another reason why it made sense to kind of, you know, write songs about that, because that's all we liked. And Chaz was, I think it took him a little bit while to get used to the metal and the death metal stuff. Yeah. I hope you remember in the early days of Deep Red, he kept pushing his band Serial Killers, you know, and I used to write him letters. Chaz, these guys suck. You know, it's kind of like you go to a horror convention anymore and a magazine that will not name mention, but you'll know, you know, they want to tell you that Harley Poe is the best death rock band of all time, and I'm like, these guys suck. You're way out of your league if you bring that to me. And, you know, there were a lot of us who were trying to tell Chaz. I mean, I sent him a cassette tape, I remember, in like 87 or 88 or whatever. I sent him a cassette tape of the Macabre. I sent him a copy of I dubbed a copy of the Grim Reality EP, because I'm like, this is how songs about serial killers is done. This band you're pushing, they're horrible, man. I mean, I don't know. It sounded like you know, Aerosmith on meth kind of.
Yep.
You know, it was bad. It was bad. Trailer rock. I don't know. You know, nothing. No offense to trailers people, but trailer rock is what it is. I mean, it was bad. So yeah, I think it took him a while to finally realize that. And then, of course, over the years, our identities festered, and at some point in time, he kept seeing these mortician shirts. You know, the fuck is this? You know, these guys at horror convention walk up there. You go, do you like Autopsy? Who? You know, and I think he started finally, you know, and maybe it was probably guys like Killjoy or whatever that he was actually friends with that, you know, kept pushing him, you know, hey, your home is here.
Yep.
You know, these guys are your brothers. You know, this is your audience. Your audience are in bands. The guys from Serial Killers couldn't give a shit. You know, come, stay, let me pray, whatever you do. These guys worship everything you do. With your writing, your artwork. I mean, this is what it's all about.
Totally.
And and I think it finally popped in his head. And I'm glad that. I mean, I'm sorry he's gone, but I think he really, more than a lot of us do, he really made the best use of his time while he was here, and I don't think he ever slowed down, or I don't think he ever wasted a breath. Well, he may have wasted on promoting the Serial Killers, but I'll give him that.
Right.
I'll let that slide.
For sure. So Faceless comes out. You know, you guys are starting to pick up some steam or whatever. You want to go back, and now was Horror of the Zombies already titled, or was that kind of just?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. Horror of the Zombies was already. I'm going to do my rock star egotistical musical genius thing.
Do it.
You see, son, Horror of the Zombies. That was already done and written and finished by the time Ultimo was released. Well, that's only because Ultimo took forever to release. Actually, that's not true. Yeah. Horror of the Zombies was pretty much written like within the same, my memory escapes me, within around the same 4 or 5 month period, in almost exactly the same order in which you hear it on the album. There were a couple switcheroos. Ultimo was kind of at the time for me, it was kind of like a clip show for us. right? I mean, there was a theme around it. It was all fresh and new for a lot of people. But for us, it was like there's a couple songs that had never been on anything before, and it was a couple songs we had played since we were a band in October of 1987, right? And Horror of the Zombies was my first chance to do something all new. And I knew, and Faceless, of course, the Experiment EP, I knew what I didn't want to do, and that was anything like the song Sinister Urge / Faceless. It turned out okay, but after we recorded that song, I'm like, we're never playing this live. We're never playing this again. This is over with. It was nice. The lyrics were good. It turned out all right, but that was me trying too hard to write stuff like Entombed, I think. It just didn't fit. So, like with my experimental phase in '88 that, brought me back to the stuff, to the Giallo years, I had to get that out of my system and write a song like that. I'm like, okay, I think I know what I'm comfortable with, and I think we're going to go ahead and go with that. So, Boneyard was probably the first song that was written that would end up being on Horror of the Zombies, and we had an offer to do a split 7-inch with Blood, and I'd already written Boneyard, and I had written another song. So I'm like, okay, it's split 7-inch time. One of these songs is going to be on the album, and one of these songs isn't. It's only going to be on the 7-inch. I mean, you got to keep it real.
Yep.
So I made the decision that Cannibal Apocalypse, which had been written for the album, would be the 7-inch only song, and Boneyard would be the one that made the transition. And that EP, by the way, was recorded in the same studio we recorded our original demo at Giallo for a total cost of $20. And
Awesome.
and we would have got the third song I wrote for the album, which was I Work for the Street Cleaner. We were going to record that anyway just for Yucks. It wasn't going to be on the EP. It was too long for that. But halfway through the first run, Dan broke a snare drum. And as anyone who's a poor band in the 90s can remember, sometimes when you break a drum head, that's the end of the show.
Yeah.
We did not have another one. It was literally 2 o'clock in the morning. We weren't getting another one. That's just the way it goes. So, okay, that's a wrap. And Street Cleaner got halfway done, and I think we included the take on a couple of the reissues just for Yucks. But, Boneyard, Cannibal Apocalypse, Street Cleaner. So those are the first 3 songs I had written. Cannibal Apocalypse was out, and I had been writing the rest, again, pretty much in the same order in which they appear on the album. So it was a lot more cohesive, and it was my plan all the way from the beginning to kind of not a concept album, but I wanted an album that kind of flowed a certain way. I wanted a fast song here, a faster song, a slow song, fast song. I wanted there to be a specific geometry to the entire thing from start to finish. It's an LP, so side A, it's got to end on this note. Side B's got to start on this note, and side B's got to end on this note. Side A's got to start on this note and everything. So when I was writing the songs, like I said, pretty much in the order in which they were going to be on the album, I was kind of thinking about that. So I had lyrics, for the most part, they had no music to it, or music that had no lyrics. So I was able to be flexible. And that's pretty much how we rehearsed them, in that order. So when we went in the studio, we'd be ready to do them in that order and not jump around and not do a couple of different takes or anything like that. Right. And I wanted us to be better prepared in the studio. Not that we were in an Ultimo, but now that I got the whole pencil cuff thing out of the way, I want it to be. I had a budget of $1,500. And I got to call Morbid Angel, recorded Ultras of Madness for $60,000 at Morris Sound, and I thought, should have asked for $2,000.
Jesus.
But anyway, what can you do, right? So yeah, all the stuff was written, and we pretty much knew what we had to do, and there was going to be this thing that started off side B, where in Ultimo, the intro to Bitch That's Teenage Mutant Monster from Hell was actually composed by me in the studio with sound effects CDs and this louder, do this, and I did the voice, and I wanted to do something similar for Horror of the Zombies because I think a lot of people got the kick out of the fact that that intro to Bitch That Teenage Mutant Monster from Hell was all me and a couple of sound effects, and I'm like, I think we can do something like that again, We'll do it in Horror of the Zombies. It'll start off side B. I already knew that. Wrote to my buddy Scott Chainsaw Lesperance. I said, Scott, I want you to write a poem about cannibals. And 2 weeks later, he wrote me an email, or wrote me a letter back. Listen to me. He wrote me a letter back saying, here you go, I hope this will do. And I'm like, yeah, this is fine. So, again, kind of a harken back to the Bloody Mess thing. It's like, let's get some other thoughts in here, kind of make this a group project. And I said, okay, this will be the beginning of side B. We'll do a sound effects thing in the studio, and it was going to be my Horse Latitudes. If there's any Doors fans out there, then you already know the story about Horse Latitudes. So, yes, we went into the studio. Are we ready for that?
Yep, let's do it.
Okay. All right.
Let's do it.
We go to the studio. Dave Jost is there. He gets his bag of weed. And so he stays with us the whole time. We talked to Rubel. I said, there's a couple things we got to stat out here. I have a sound effects track on here. And he's like, well, I got sound effects. He had vintage guitars. He had vintage amps. He had stuff, percussion instruments everywhere. The basement of this building, again, there used to be a theater there. So we went in this basement, dirt floor cavern. I felt like I was walking around in the movie Bloody Pit of Horror when I was down there. It was that nasty. There was wood beams that had calcified or probably, rocked by now. And, let's get this. Found a bunch of bottles. Great. There's an oil drum. Perfect. And so he had some sound effects albums, records. And I'm like, yep, there we go. I said, you got anything with any tribal chants? He had this like World Music of Africa. It was a, Folkways release from 1952 or something like that. And he put the needle on, piped it into the board. I said, okay, we need this. And Dan, give me a beat, something like that. That's too fast. That's too slow. And then we had all these 2 or 3 different tracks of voices, bottles and oil drums, stuff burning, crashing, Horse Latitudes. And that was Cannibale Ballet.
Wow. No shit, eh? So you guys did that all in the studio?
Yep. Composed all the junk we could find, get this noise in there. We had a couple whip cracks. Scotty getting whipped, Dave Jost. It was all like, all composed in the studio.
Wow. So were your vocals fucked around with too in that?
No. Oh yeah, and that, yeah.
Right.
We use a pitch shifter.
Right.
We use a pitch shifter.
Okay.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Not ashamed to admit it, but it was
No.
like I did them straight, and then I'm like, no. This has to be more ominous, and I'm just going to go for the pyogenesis sound here.
Yes. Oh man. Well, because honestly, dude, that song that starts side B, it fucking blows my mind. I'm going to tell you a story. There was I was out with a bunch of friends one night. We were doing shrooms, and cruise
Yeah, maybe shrooms.
doing shrooms. So we were cruising around, and it was around 95, I believe it was 95, 96. And a lot of my friends, just getting into, heavy music and everything like that. And by that time, I mean, I've already owned Ultimo and Faceless and everything else. So I was getting into shrooms, and this song that was this Cannibal Ballet was coming on, and I was just blowing my mind. We were in the car, right? I wasn't high at this time. This was later in the night, so all my friends were still tripping out. So I was like, all right, we're going home. We're gonna go chill. So I put on fucking side B, tape player in the car, put it on, right? And then the fucking tribal starts going, and everybody was literally quiet for the 4 minutes that the song is. And then as soon as the song's finished, and then it kicks into the next tune, right after Trap Them and Kill Them, right? My buddy in the back seat goes, stop this, stop that song. He goes, I still can't register what the fuck that was. That was the most intense thing I think I've ever heard in my life. Like the lyrics and everything put together, like it's such a trip. It's such a trip, dude. Like it's a soundtrack, but it's a song, but it's like I don't know what to explain. Like it's crazy.
it was. I'm not going to say I didn't write it to fuck with people's heads, but that was the intent. Like I say, it opened side B for a reason. You know, it's like side A gets done. You know how side A finishes.
Yep.
And you're like, where are we going now? Well, we're gonna go through the whole Cannibal Quartet, right? It's like the next 3 songs or what they are, and trio, double, whatever. It's all 3 songs, all cannibals. It's like here's our post intermission entertainment. You know,
Yes.
It's like Sound of Music starts where it starts after intermission for a reason. 2001 the same way, and that was kind of like the flow of the album. That's a part of it. It sneaks up on you, and it was supposed to fuck with your mind. Yeah. You know.
Yeah, it just breaks it up.
And,
It totally does.
Yeah. And you can thank Scott Chainsaw Last Brats. I don't know where you are, man. I sent you a copy of the album and I never heard from you again. But hope you like it.
Wow, yeah, those lyrics for that, honestly, man, like they're imprinted in my brain, man. Your life is in danger.
Yeah.
Beware of the carnivore whores.
That's right.
Holy shit.
You wrote it. All I said is write me a poem about cannibals.
Wow.
I'm going to use it, and he sent me that, and I'm like, that's perfect.
So
the less detail you give someone on something you want like that, the better it comes out.
honestly, and I love the title of Horror of the Zombies, but I'd say that's the worst of the trilogy of Armando's Blind Dead.
Yeah, well, yeah, and Horror of the Zombies it was the title from the beginning.
Right.
Our next album is going to be Horror of the Zombies. I don't know if I said it, if I came up to me while I was taking a shit, taking a shower, I don't know. Horror of the Zombies was always, the title always stuck out in, the deep reds and everything, and I'm like, it's not the original title. It's better than the Ghostly Galleon, though. I mean, come on, let's put $5 on that square because it is better. I mean, we used to get so annoyed about the retitling thing, but sometimes they came up with better shit. I mean,
Totally.
7 Doors of Death. It's like, right. Now you have my attention.
Yeah.
And that was the whole point.
Yeah, totally.
The whole point of the retitling, nobody came to see this movie when it was the Ghostly Galleon. Or nobody's going to come see a fucking movie called Ghostly Galleon. Let's call it Horror of the Zombies. And that was us, right? Exploitation, Euro trash. I'm like, that the whole premise, the story behind the name is one of the reasons why the album is called that. Because we're just kind of carrying the whole Ultimo Mondo Cannibale thing to a next level, which was Horror of the Zombies. Now
Sweet.
You have the original Italian title of the movie. Now you have the retitled English title of the movie that's better than the original title. And there isn't a song on the album called Horror of the Zombies, and the song isn't all about zombies. If that offends anyone, I'm sorry about that, but you got to remember the way my brain works. I'm not talking about a single track. I'm talking about if anyone's ever seen the 7 Green Lines video on YouTube, you'll know what I'm talking about. There's 7 lines, they're all perpendicular, and they don't intersect. But they do intersect, but you can't draw them. You just have to, they're just there. And the cover was also in my head. It's the final scene from Horror of the Zombies, where they're on the beach and the guys are looking over them.
Yep.
And a frame stops. The Osorio was great at just freezing his frame and roll the credits. And the first time I saw that movie, I was not impressed with it until that final scene. That final scene made it. I was standing over the beach and I'm like, that's going to be the cover of the album. I literally wanted to take a photo of that and use that for the album cover. And I'm like, not garish enough. I like the way it looked. I like the feeling of I'm on the beach and I'm done. I can't escape now. I'm surrounded by Templars. That's the end of the night. But I wanted the same thing. So I made a little sketch and I said, you can kind of tell when you look at it, they are kind of like, they're not completely circled around the victim, but they are definitely, you kind of get the feeling that the point of view is I'm about to have my brains eaten and there's nothing I can do about it.
Yep, totally.
Into Cannibal Jim, I gave the sketch to him. I said, do what you can with this. And he came back and I thought, yeah, that looks pretty cool. It's not it was the first time I had ever just given someone a pencil sketch and say, run with it. But I liked Cannibal's work, and I had kind of there's lot of color in it. There's a lot of shapes and things that are not. It's not a Chaz Balin drawing, but that's
Right.
what I like about it. Is the detail is not forgiving, and it looks a little corny in some respects, but that's perfect. That's what I was looking for. I was looking for something that was not serious.
Yep.
I didn't want to, and no offense to bands like this, but I didn't want this outrageously precise piece of art like you see on like Tomb of the Mutilated or any Dan Seagrave stuff. I wanted something that actually did kind of look shitty.
Sure.
And I'm not saying his art is shitty, but I'm like, don't make this look beautiful. And there's a reason I didn't want to draw it, because I didn't want to get all whacked out at the perfectionism of it. I wanted something that was cartoonish and colorful and garish and outrageous in that sense.
And a lot of the horror on VHS, especially with the amount of different covers that they came out with, some of them were trashy, some of them were shitty, some of them were awesome, and you didn't like.
And you wouldn't know it now if you were a teenager or even a 20-something now. You would never think that anyone would just completely like the Wizard of Gore VHS cover is a perfect example. What the fuck is that? And half of the covers didn't have anything to do with the movies anyway. So the fact that the cover of my album had nothing to do with what was on the album anymore was not a problem for me.
Yep.
Right?
So why did you guys gravitate to the Euro?
Oh, it's shit people did not want to touch, didn't want to see, didn't want to talk about.
Yep.
I mean, you didn't the magazines that wrote about this stuff were all garbage can magazines, right? They were like the death metal fanzines. I mean, they were the same kind of magazines we were reading already. It's like some guy in his basement wrote 6 essays about 2 Herschel Gordon Lewis movies, and he Xeroxed the shit and stapled it and sold it to you for $1 or $2, and then he'd also send you a list of his tapes if you wanted to buy some of those.
Right.
And that was kind of the stuff we were into. You mentioned Fangoria. You know, a lot of us back then, we really stopped reading Fangoria in the early '80s, right? I mean,
it was getting mainstream.
Yeah, I mean, I gotta admit, I wasn't interested in seeing. Well, when I was a kid, I used to read Famous Monsters. It was the same thing. It was like they had these setups and these pictures, and I'm like, holy shit, I got to see this movie, and I sneak into the drive-in or movie theater and not pay it because Stevo never pays, and it was a horrible movie, and I'm like, man, they made it look so good in Famous Monsters, and Fangoria kind of did the same thing in the late '70s and the early '80s, and Friday the 13th never would have gone near it if it wasn't for the pictures of Kevin Bacon with a knife through his fucking head or this or that. So it was always kind of, and these fanzines, we even in our young adulthood, we still kind of had the same behavior. It's like, what do you hear about this movie? Well, I've got Street Trash Cinema, which was published by some Yahoo in Arizona. It's 6 pages. It cost me $2, and he says this is the grossest fucking movie he'd ever seen in his life. So let's check it out.
Yeah.
Right.
Totally. And that's the same thing with listening to Chaz Balloon talk about the movies that he liked, and you're like, okay, well he liked Street Trash, he liked freaking Cannibal Holocaust, so he liked Bride of Frank and all these other weird movies. So I think I'm gonna listen to this guy because he knows what he's talking about.
And even the stuff he hated, we had to see. It's like, Lady in a Cave. He's like, I don't think I can ever watch this again. I'm like, dude, we gotta see that.
Yeah. Same with Monster.
Chaz can't handle it. That's for me.
Same with Monster Dog with Alice Cooper in it, right? It was one of those. Yeah, he hated that movie, but you had to see it anyways, though.
You had to see it. It's like, he can't stand it. Let's go. He never said don't see it. He just said he couldn't stand it.
Yeah. So you wrote the lyrics for a lot of this stuff, correct?
Right. Yep. And again, Horror of the Zombies. It was like all the lyrics I'd write on the back of it. I was running a gas station, so we'd stock cigarettes, and I'd tear the cartons up, and I'd keep all these things, and I wrote all the lyrics written on the back of cigarette cartons, sometimes while I was driving. Sorry, I hope my kids aren't watching this. You shouldn't do that. I just write all the lyrics, and the riff would come in my head sometimes. Sometimes I just had the lyrics and had a riff and put it together. But, in Horde of the Zombies, it was a very organized effort, so we were ready to go into the studio. 100% prepared to record an album for $1,500 or less. And and we pulled it off. Like I said, I got to be a little bit of a dickhead sometimes. Some of the guys, Mark, Dan, Scotty especially. I'm sorry I yelled at you, but y'all knew what we were doing, and they understood. It was very professional, within the realms of professional, for what you could call it.
But the way that you, like, with your vocal approach, which was not a typical, like, a growl like everybody was doing at that time, you were trying to enunciate things with, like, a gurgle in the background and throwing all these different... But your lyrics are what kind of made the music even more, like, enjoyable, is because the way you weaved, like, certain words around certain riffs and everything like that, like that was obviously premeditated.
Yeah, I've always been a big William Blake fan, and obviously stuff like Edgar Allan Poe and Nathaniel Hawthorne, the way they wrote. But William Blake in particular kind of had the same thing going on, where it was like, you try to, some prose is just for explanation, some prose is meant to paint pictures, and I felt like, as far as you could put any words you wanted to, as long as it could go with the song. And again, like I said, with Wizard of Roy, it was so important for Dave to help me out with that one part, because I kind of had in my head how everything had gone in the song except for that verse, and I had no idea. And Dave had worked with me before, and he kind of knew the way my mind was thinking. But yeah, it's another instrument. I gotta say, I had no shortage of words in here at the time to come up with to go with it. But the way it's all put together is, kind of movie scriptish in one hand, but again, it's just more like another instrument. It's like you can completely ignore what words are being said, and your point, it's another just part of the song itself.
Yeah, totally.
The way they string together.
Yeah, because I mean, like, Mortician was straight to the point, like, heads cut off, bodies are done, blah blah blah, right? Yeah. But you, though, you were literally weaving words into like this crazy storyline, and you followed it. I don't know, man. Like, I gotta say, nobody's written lyrics like you have.
I appreciate that. I mean, I really do, and it was something that some of it I read, and it's like my favorite song I ever wrote was "Staff Terrorist." It was personal at the time, but yeah, it's a real thing, and everyone has all those stories about, I had this friend who worked at Burger King, and he used to wipe snot in the buns. It's like, we all go out to eat, and we try not to think about that stuff.
Right.
But there are people out there, like Henry Lee Lucas said, there are people out there just like me who's out to destroy human life. Now, these guys, they don't want to kill anybody, but they certainly do get a real kick out of, licking your taco shells, right? Stuff like that. I mean, they're out there, and it's the Staff Terrorist is again, it's kind of the manifesto of the guy who hates society so much. He just can't wait to do whatever he can to share his bodily fluids and whatever you're going to be eating, and he's good at it. He's skilled at it. He gets different jobs and never gets caught because he keeps moving around. They can't trace him, and he gets up in the morning and drinks his coffee or his Mad Dog or whatever it is he drinks in the morning, and he reads in the paper about all these people who got sick at eating at Burger King, and he just laughs because he's like, "That's right, you fuckers. That's what I'm doing to you. I hate you. I'm doing it."
I hate people, man.
Yeah, I hate people, man.
And that was because, again, like I said, it's like I wanted to really, not just, I peed milk, I shit burritos. Like I said, it's like I could do that, and I've done that. Unadulterated Brutality is one of those songs, and that's great. But I wanted to do something more that, kind of, this is that guy, because we all know that guy or girl, right? I mean, everybody knows somebody who has done this.
Yep.
And it's like, how far do you want to go with it? Well, this guy's not just fucking around. He means it.
Totally.
And that's kind of what it's in.
My God. So yeah, man. Like, honestly, I'm gonna say personally that Horror of the Zombies is probably one of the closest albums to me that I can relate to on all levels. Like, I've fucking memorized a shit ton of lyrics on that album and everything, and And then when it comes to Breakfast at the Manchester Morgue, man,
That's the big finish, man.
that is the fucking holy shit, dude. Like,
That's the big finish. Like I say, it was meant to be that way. That song, that last song. Now again, I hadn't written it, but I'm like, the last song is going to be the epic. I mean, it's like I've said it other things over, but it's like Empire by Queensryche.
right.
Right?
Okay.
I finished that album with, is anybody listening, right? I finished my Empire with Breakfast at the Manchester Morgue. That's the one. That's the song that just wraps it all up. It's like if you're sitting there and you listen to side A, you listen to side B, probably still recovering from that Cannibal song.
Yep.
and you get the other two Cannibal songs, and then you get Staff Terrorist, and then next thing you know, it's like Defiling the Grave is like, don't go to sleep on me yet.
Yep.
Don't go to sleep on me yet.
Yeah, you punched everybody there.
Yeah, it's like, all right, I'm still awake, I'm still here, and then Breakfast is like,
Yes.
but this is just, even without looking at the record, if you're listening to it, you should be able to say, I'll bet this is the last song of the album.
It literally works, man. As soon as that fucking with the whole intro from it all, man. Like, I mean, I first heard the intro before I watched the movie. So as soon as I watched the movie, I was like, holy shit, here's the movie. Here it is, right? and then
They're dead, aren't they?
Yeah, God only knows what brought them back to life, right? Right. Oh my God, dude.
Everything.
And then as soon as that fucking riff comes in and you throw in that blah right at the beginning there, like, just all of a sudden you're starting this new plateau of like, okay, what the fuck are you gonna do now? Because like you said, you just killed us with Defiling the Grave, and then Breakfast at the Manchester Morgue comes in, and then but the lyrics though, man, like the bleak sun rises on smog-stained clouds. Is that what it is? The day begins. The day begins in a very somber way, right? Like, holy shit, dude, man! Like, you can feel, like you said, you can feel.
That's cool. That I like. Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's probably more Hawthorne than Blake, but that's kind of what I was trying to do. It's like, look, here's what's going on, and and then it's the end, and it just kind of slow fade out.
My God.
I haven't written the rest, but I'm like, the song's got that slow fade out. You can hear the feedback just kind of barely hang on there at the end. And
Yep.
Yeah.
Wow.
And of course I love to hear it. I'm humble about it. I don't know what else to say except for, I appreciate that. I really do. But that's, like I said earlier, that album, we were trying to make that kind of record. People who get it will listen to it and go, yeah, yep, here you go.
Yep.
And, it's always one of my favorite responses to, well, why did you guys split up? And I'm like, man, after that record, I didn't know what else I could do.
Oh, I was just going to say, so right after Horror of the Zombies, what happened? Yeah, exactly.
It wasn't right after. It was, it had taken a while to come out. We played a few shows, and again, Richard's great, man. Sent us to Puerto Rico and sent us to, helped us get to Fleet's Festival of Freaks. Fleet put the show on, but Richard C. made it happen. And
were you talking about Jimmy Fleet?
Jim Fleet, yeah.
Yeah, from Phlegm. Yeah.
Yeah. Richard helped us, helped pay for that, helped get us on an airplane and everything, helped get us there. And we did 2 Metal Fests. He did all that for us, and we played, and that was really, as far as live stuff, even though the Metal Fest sets are always short. Fleet's Fest, Puerto Rico show was a logistic and a technological disaster, but it was one of the craziest things I've ever done in my life. The shows during that time, we were a little bit, again, we've been working on this same material, in order for a long time. And in the studio, we banged it out like a champ. Horror of the Zombies cost $1,350.
Oh, wow, you're under.
That's it. Yeah, under budget. Well, I got to do it.
Yeah.
And that's all it costs. I mean, we could have spent another $200 and kept the tapes. I have a 2-track master, I think. No, we never got that back. Long story for another time. We could have, kept all those tapes, and so we could do a remix someday. But the way it turned out to me was perfect. We worked real hard with Ruble on mixing it and mastering it. It was mastered, by the way, on the very same tape machine that the Commodores recorded all their albums on in the early 70s. So
wow.
I'm Easy was mastered on the same tape machine that Where the Zombies was.
That's ridiculous. That's not fair. Right. The Commodores are amazing.
That's right. So,
that's right.
Toward the morning and all dark and that tape spinning around, he tells me this, and I'm just like, what the fuck? Anyway.
Wow.
We could have spent a little bit more money, but we did. But it was, I just wanted a record that I didn't want to have to touch ever again. Again, that was the ultimate experience. It's like, you don't want to record something 6 months later and go, man, I wish we wouldn't have listened to that guy. And I didn't want to do that again. And I knew with Ruble we weren't going to have that. And that's what we ended up. I mean, we, when we reissued it on Razorback, Patrick did some re-EQ it for it, really kind of helped out. The technology of the time and what we can do now, it's like those are just nuances. I wouldn't consider that touching it. But I've never, ever regretted not having the master tapes because I don't know what I could do with it. I don't know what else I could do with it.
Wow.
But Richard loved Cannon Bailey Ballet so much, he wanted to do a 12-inch of just that song.
Wow. Holy shit.
And I was like, well, okay. It never happened, but just, I mean, Richard was ecstatic. He was just like, this just turned out, this is just no bullshit. I'm like, yes, that's what we're looking for.
Wow.
No bullshit. Just a record that if you like this stuff, you can relate to it, and it's not, it never gets disinteresting, I don't think. Of course, I never listen to it. A lot of you know this, but I never listen to my own stuff after I'm done with it. And I just, I didn't want it to be disinteresting, and I wanted to, nothing to get lost there. Again, the flow, the whole way everything goes, it was all intended to be that way. It was all kind of designed to have a best attempt at holding your attention and not getting bored and hear something different in each song, right? No two songs should sound alike. If you want to call Defiling the Grave just a faster version of Boneyard, the same vein, that's fine. I think there's a few more chords in Defiling the Grave. Bonesyard's just 4, right? But you see what I'm saying. It's not the same song.
Totally.
Not the same way. I wanted to keep things rolling kind of, and not let things get moldy along the way. And after that, after the way I felt about it, I'm like, I don't know if I can ever top this. And that was kind of the first problem, first opportunity, right? Maybe we can do better. A lot of bands try to stay together too long after their most perfect album is made.
All the time.
And they live to regret it. A lot of them do, and it's not so much regret as remember that time you recorded Rain and Blood? It's like, this is good, but hey, remember that one time? Well, that was awesome. But once you've got the one that you're the happiest with, it's like kind of finding that person you want to spend the rest of your life with. It's like, what do I go looking for something else for? I mean, I think I'm here.
Yeah.
And I didn't understand the way it felt at the time, but we had been doing the live shows and the metal fests, and things were going well, but we really wanted to do more with the live show. We probably wanted to do too much. We wanted better amps, because for the fest that wasn't a problem, but if we wanted to do other shows, it was going to be a problem. We wanted to do something more visually, like we wanted some dead bodies on the stage and some cannibal steaks and stuff like that. And I was talking to a guy, and Mark and I were trying to find $1,000 to hire this guy to do these set pieces for us. So when we could play, it would be more like what you heard when you were listening to the album or what you pictured. Right? And I had the album cover in front of you instead of our ugly mugs up there. We were really, really interested in doing that and the amps. And the more we started talking about it, the more it seemed like we needed to invest more money in the live shows. And we all had jobs, and we had other stuff going on. We're like, well, maybe listen to us talking about money. Yeah, who'd have thunk it?
Right.
That's what we're talking about. We talked a little bit about our next record here and there, and a couple songs we were working on, but all we're talking about is money. And do we quit our jobs? Do we go on tour? And then I'm like, money. That's not why we're doing this. And it wasn't like we had to go anywhere with that, but we decided not to do the live shows anymore, you know?
Wow.
It was like, well, we won't play live. We'll just keep making records. Making records is fun. No, making records isn't fun. Making records is a pain in the ass.
Right.
Yeah.
And the money thing, we got around that by not playing live anymore. That was okay. We didn't play live that much anyway. So that time it was not a big deal for us. But then it just, it's how serious do you want to get this? You know, Spastic Blur had a thing saying if you're serious, you lose. And we were at the point where we're like, well, how much time we want to devote to this? And well, we can't practice very much because Scotty's got a better job now, and Mark had a pretty good job at the time. It's funny, the only guy who was technically unemployed was me, but I was trying to do something about that. I was considering going back to school. I was married, but I was considering starting a family. It's like all those things started to fit into mine. And me focusing on the band and band things didn't seem to mesh very well with going back to school. I've done that before, and I'm not like a single tracker, I'm a multitasker, but that was pretty serious. I mean, so we just kind of said, you know what, let's just give it a rest here, and we've all got other things in our lives going on, and that's what happened.
Wow. So just like that, you already knew Horror of the Zombies was the topper.
I really felt like when it was done mixing it, I felt like, I still got some songs in me, and we were working on 2 songs when all this happened. Well, it had been a year since we'd written anything. That was probably another thing. But working on Planet of the Vampires and Color Me Blood Red, and I was going to write this Asian horror thing, Category 3 kind of stuff. Mark and I were talking about doing something with that. And, I just, the way it turned out, I'm like, I couldn't have been any better than this.
Wow.
And, I didn't want to feel it. I never felt any pressure to top it.
Right.
We were going to do a split with Blood Duster, and a couple of these songs I was working on, I was going to be on that. And I never felt intimidated by it, but I think more after we decided to break up is when I started thinking about it. I said, maybe I just didn't want to go beyond Horror of the Zombies. I don't know.
Wow.
Yeah.
So fast forward to 2007, you guys get asked to do this Central Illinois Fest.
Yeah. That was, we had kind of talked about maybe doing a reunion here or there, getting together, recording a couple songs. It had just always been kind of something we talked about. But the whole timing of it being the anniversary of our first show, and just everything surrounding the deal was kind of like hey, this would be a great idea, and it was kind of in our neck of the woods, and we gave it our all. We certainly put a lot into it, and we certainly got a lot out of it. So it was a tremendous success. If I was going to say if that was the last show we'd ever did, and I'm never going to say that it is going to be the last one. I mean, couldn't like the album. I couldn't have expected it to go any better. We actually sounded better at that show than we did when we were together, and I'm not kidding. Even after being away from it for 12 or 13 years. We were more diligent with practice, kind of like we were in the studio when we were doing that stuff. And just live, I had trouble with lyrics. I had a couple fuck-ups in there, but not as many as we used to have, and it kind of felt like everybody was having a good time. When we were playing live before, not so much.
Right.
I was so stressed out, second Metal Fest, I can't even remember. I mean, that's how worked up I was over it. This was a lot more fun, and I remember more about this. So it was if that's a note we go out on, that was good.
So a bunch of those live tracks ended up going on the re-release of Horror of the Zombies on Razorback, correct?
From the reunion show?
Yes.
No, actually, the reunion show came out as a live album in itself.
Just itself.
The Razorback, the shows on the live songs on the Razorback reissues are from Fleet's Fest of Fruits.
Oh, okay.
Yep. There were some issues with the tape machine on the soundboard, and about 4 or 5 songs came out and sounded pretty good, and those were 2 or 3 of them is what we used for that. Yeah.
Right on.
Yep.
So even though Impetigo's kind of, you know, doing its own thing in the background and, you know, becoming cultish because, you know, obviously Wild Rags Records is, you know, all of a sudden this label that everybody wants to, you know about and everything
It's
else.
incredible. Yeah, I wish Richard C. could enjoy it, but he's fine.
Totally.
Yeah, he's all right.
You end up going on to start doing little projects on the side with other people's bands and everything like that too now.
That's right. Yep. I think the first one was, I don't know. I think the Gruesome Stuff Relish was on Razorback, and Billy and I were good friends, and he said, they'd like you to sing backup on one of the songs on the album. And I'm like, I don't know how the fuck to do this. I went and borrowed a PC microphone from a guy down the street, and I literally had my headphones in, an iPod or something, listening to the basic track and singing it, recording it on the, real audio, right, on my Windows 3.1 system, and sending that file and say, I have no way to sync this with what you sent me, but I'm just telling you now, this is the best I can do. And that was, that was it.
Yeah.
And they put it together. I'm sure it was a real pain in the ass, but they put it together. And Billy heard it and was like, oh, great. And, Cam and I were going to do a thing with Patrick and Wayne called Beware. And then that eventually became Tombstones, which, and I think in between there I did guest vocals on a Fondle Corpse thing. That became the Tombstones thing, me, Patrick, and Wayne. And which, very, very honestly, that's probably the best vocals I've ever done. Was on Tombstone's album, the first one. I was a little bit better at recording it by the time. Patrick would probably disagree. I'm sure he had to do a lot of work, but I was a little more comfortable with screaming in front of a computer instead of in a dark room with incense and, Dan Nalen falling asleep on the couch next to the board. But it was, I had a lot more fun with it. I was able to do multiple vocal tracks, which with Horror of the Zombies, the fanciest thing I ever did was we recorded the vocals through a blown out guitar amplifier.
Wow. No shit.
Yeah, the clean vocals, I hated them. So I'm like, why don't we just put a mic in front of this blown out amplifier? Why don't I record the vocals through that? Okay. And that's how we did that. So that was the wildest thing I'd ever done. And with Tombstones, I was able to do backing vocals here and get real nuts with it. And I really liked the way it turned out. Patrick and I have been kind of working on another one, but not real diligently. But yeah, we'll see what happens there.
Yeah.
But, and then I did some backing vocals for fantastic, another fellow Canadian VHS. I did some backing vocals for them. That was a real blast. And, working on some stuff now with Cropsy Maniac. We're excited.
I'm actually on the same album with you.
There you go. There you go. I'm really excited. Finally get to do something with them. One of my favorite bands. And
totally.
Yeah, and then of course my current thing is I'm in this filthy noise pure pitch grindcore band with my buddy Francisco. I don't know if you're watching, Francisco, but you fucking suck. And we're kind of, he and Francisco from HRA and Thy Feeble Savior and Cemeterian and Matt, who's in Thy Feeble Savior and 100 other bands like Gothic Cruelty or Morbid Sin. I lose track.
Yeah.
And that would just kind of happen by circumstance. And Francisco's like, hey, man, check this out. And he sends me these WAV files of this stuff they recorded in the garage with a tape recorder. And I was just fucking around. I had some of these Tombstone stuff I was working on, and I just kind of basically spliced my tracks over this. I'm like, yeah, listen to this. And next thing you know, I'm in the band. I wasn't trying to. I just, hey, man, how do you think this sounds? And it's really cool because those same tapes are the ones we used for the actual demo we did. Intolerable Noise Orchestra is what it's called. We did a thing in 2017, 2018 called... what? I almost said Not for the Squeamish, but that's the Tombstones thing. Yeah. Anyway, we did this tape, and It's horrible. It's shitty. I love it. The only thing I don't like about it is my vocals are too clean. I'm going to fix that in the next release. Francisco and I are completely flipping out on Peruvian noisecore right now, just giving you a warning. So the next release is going to sound like total anarchy compared to that. That was kind of our Deep Purple with the guy who was in Captain Beyond on vocals days. This is going to be something. We're going straight to the killing years, I think.
Yeah, but that demo though there, it
Sweet for the grinder.
Yes, it sounds like early Agathicals.
Well, and we kind of, that's why when Francis, sent me the stuff, I said, this is great, This sounds like the old Rupture, which they later became Zysma or whatever.
Right.
Agathocles, all that stuff. And that was kind of like, that's why I took the vote and I said, this sounds great, and the thing I like about it is there's no fucking lyrics.
Oh, you're just Donald Tarding it the whole time, eh?
I'm actually Stevoing it. My approach is a combination of Donald Tardy and Paul Chain, if you will. I use a language. It's mostly phonetic. It doesn't mean anything, but once in a while I'll write some lyrics that I think are okay, but it's too much thinking involved in it, and I actually do write out what I'm going to sing when I sing this stuff, but yeah, it's pretty much all blown up.
Sweet.
But on the next release, not so much. We're pure noise. It's if you've ever heard Phlegm from Peru or damn it. See, I'm having trouble remembering even some of the band's names right now because it's very late. But Phlegm and Pulverized Necrobrain is another one.
Okay.
We've just been going ape shit over all this stuff. Catacomb and all this fucking crazy shit. And it's wonderful. It's great. It's actually like post-AC and, 7 minutes of nausea.
Oh,
so
yeah.
It's very organic and it's filthy. So the no lyrics. I mean, if you want to try to figure out what the lyrics are, there are words and stuff in there, but you'll never get it.
And it's nice too that you're bringing up like 7 minutes of nausea and all that other old shit, where like the old Slap-a-Ham, where you guys had Jane Fonda Sucks on there originally. That was all just power violence, noise, just noise grind.
Yeah. And there's a lot of bands obviously from that era and beyond, but the stuff from Peru just comes close to the heart, man. It is great. I mean, that one band is literally a guy and his voice sounds like a blow dryer with a blown motor, and it's the best fucking thing in the world. I don't know how he does his shit with his throat, but God bless him, he's on it. He nailed it, man. It's fantastic.
Sweet. So are you still doing Surgical?
Surgical, yeah, we're kind of done with, and I did kind of skip over them unintentionally.
Nope.
I think I'm sorry, I was distracted. I was looking at my battery. But yeah, Surgical was a lot of fun. A lot of people involved in that. It was so fantastic to work with Ash on something for a while, finally, because he and Zeka are really, really good friends of mine. And we always talked about doing stuff, never got it together. And Surgical was our chance to do that. And Billy kind of brought the whole thing together. And actually, most of the music on the first album was mostly stuff Billy came up with, and Ash was able to sculpt into the final product. And with the split EPs, we got to kind of do some wild stuff, like a couple of the songs, Total Head Removal, and is one of them. Those were songs that were originally I had written for another project called Convulsions that I was going to do right around and before the time of the reunion show. And it was kind of, I always had those riffs in my head, and I just videotaped here, Ash, here, there, and he put it together, the lyrics and all, were written back then, and finally it was good to get those out there. And with the first album, we finally got the lyrics to Planet of the Vampires, which was one of the last IMPETIGO songs I wrote. Not the same music, but the music's similar, but the lyrics are finally out there, and that was a lot of fun. I think we're done recording the split EPs for now. So the question is, what's next? We're kind of talking about that. Obviously, some aspects of the landscape changed a little bit, but I think that Ash and I and Billy are still up for something. We'll just have to see what that something is, and
Sweet.
you know,
yeah, because that last split with Cardiac Arrest, I have that myself. That's that's unbelievable, man. That was a great release.
The Cardiac Arrest side, Cardiac Arrest fucking rules, by the way.
Yep.
You know, they're so awesome, and their new album is like swing. Okay, and the splits were a good idea. I think they were a little bit more work put together than Billy and the rest of us realized, but you know, it's kind of, you mentioned Agasocles earlier, and that was kind of my thing. It was like, we like the Agasocles of death metal, right? Just had 4,000 split EPs. Well, Ruin kind of blew us out of the water on that one. More power to you, Mike. It's a hard. It sounds easy, and I'm sure you know Agasocles had the same problem. But when a label's going to do this and it falls through, and where do you pick up from here? And stuff gets shuffled around. If you're used to things going your way, it kind of stresses you out. But if you don't give a shit, then you're okay.
So you're still loving death metal. You're still loving horror movies, and you're still you know doing little projects and doing the guest vocals and still being a part of everything.
Yeah, I still consider myself semi-retired. I get up on stage once in a while, like you know, Faith Extractor. Faith Extractor played a show here a couple of years ago, and I got on stage with them. Cardiac Arrest played a show here many years ago, and I got to do a song with them. And it's always Nauseator,
right?
From Pennsylvania, Coffin Dust, Matt Slime, and my good man Ryan. They played here at Little Wolf Festival a couple years ago, and wanted to do an IMPETIGO cover. I said, "I'm your man." Pardon me. And that's fun, but doing a whole live performance thing all by myself, you know, with a band, I don't know. Sometimes it sounds like a good idea, and I don't know. I get too old for this shit. I mean, there's a reason why I stepped away from all this, and that is I chose a different path.
Right.
I'm in that path now, career, professional. I have 2 kids. Well, I had 1 kid out of college and 1 kid in, but now I've got 1 kid in college and 1 kid getting a master's. So it's the money, the time, the being a dad is kind of the most important thing.
Yep. No, totally, man. I'm in the same boat. My kids are 20 and 14, so you know they're starting to do their things, and you're not sure if you can full time, like you said, right? So you sit in the background, and and at least you try to be involved as much as you can, because you literally can't just get out of it all.
Right, and you know there are always people trying to rope me in there. You know, Billy did that early on, and Patrick kind of keeps me going, and guys like Francisco and Aaron from Cropsy Maniac, and Matt Slime. Matt, we're still going to do a band one of these days. I'm serious. You know, we'll do something, and you know they kind of keep me, keep me in the loop, and
totally.
That's fine. Like everybody checking in on the grandpa.
Yeah. Right on, man. Right on, dude. Well, I mean, I don't want to keep you too long. We've already been chatting for like over 2 hours right now.
And I apologize. That's me just being long-winded.
It's perfect.
You know.
Yeah, fuck
no, man, that's exactly what we want, dude. Because I mean, I've been dying to hang out or chat with you guys or whatever, and just literally spill my guts out just about my love. And I say that from the heart, like my love for IMPETIGO, man. Like you guys changed the way I felt about horror movies, underground music, and everything, man. And I just want to say, like, thank you so fucking much.
You're most welcome. I appreciate it. Like I said, I'm as humble as they come, but I'm just glad. I am kind of glad we stopped where we did. A lot of people are like, "Oh no, you do more," but you know what? No, let's just keep it at that, because it is great. I think that I just think that I'm always overwhelmed by the amount of respect that everybody has for the work we did, and it was work. I mean, it was fun, but it was work too. And I think that I think that I'm pleased everybody kind of gets the point of it. And the point of it is, it's honest enthusiasm. It is just the keep it real and keep it true and don't get ahead of yourself. We never had aspirations for success outside of putting out a record, right?
Yep.
We made a record and we're like, what the fuck do we do now? That was our goal. So we just raised the bar a little bit and for ourselves and tried to do one louder. We try to turn this up to 11 and it's kind of nice to sit here with such a limited catalog in some respects and see how much interest it still has. I'm not going to be totally ambivalent to it like Herschel Gordon Lewis was about his work, but
right.
It's a good thing. I like it. I'll go to these shows or festivals, and one of the things I'm most proud of is just how the culture. We kind of said this is our culture, the whole underground thing, and everybody kind of gets that. I was at a show with a guy who I know from here in town, and by the way, hails to the Louisville folks. The scene down here is great. Everyone here is really down to earth. They've given me my space when I needed it, and they're all real great people. And I'm talking to a friend of mine at the bar, and he's with this buddy who I've never met in his life. And he's like, so, how's things going with you? Oh, not too bad. What's up? Work. And this guy I've never met before leans in and goes, working for the street cleaner? And I'm just like, oh, you got me. All right. It's just an example in the whole situation. Well, it's like, I think people feel like, I don't think people feel like I'm somebody I'm not, and never afraid to throw around the puns, which was what we were all about. Tongue in cheek.
Totally.
That's what it is. Yep. And it's just an example of how, overwhelmed I am that, people still interested in this, this stuff we did, and it's great, and I'm grateful, and hails to all of you, the folks I know who are on here and didn't get to say your name, and the folks I don't know who are watching this going, when is this guy going to shut up? I've always been a lengthy talker. I'm not fast, but I can go all time.
Perfect, man. That's exactly what we need, dude. And honestly, man, thank you so much, dude. I honestly, I appreciate this.
Thank you for doing this, man. This is great. I'm glad we were able to get it together. And everyone who's been sleeping, I get the bell out or filing the grave on right now.
And I'd like to do a part 2 actually talk about the movies the next time.
Yeah, oh yeah, we can do that anytime, sure. Absolutely. Just let me know.
All right.
You know the drill.
I do.
You know the drill.
And so do you now.
Right.
Awesome. Thank you very much, bro.
Right.
And you have the fucking best night ever.
All right. Stay sick, motherfuckers. All right.
Thanks a lot, bro.
You bet. Anytime.
Ciao. Oh, man. Holy fuck. It's fucking Stevo from IMPETIGO, man. Like, honestly, I don't know another band that I'm probably more infatuated with other than Early Exhumed. I'll go on record with saying that. Like, Slaughter Cult and Under is the greatest shit that anybody has ever done, ever. And as soon as they jumped to Relapse, it didn't matter. I still had faith, and they still fucking killed it. But literally, Slaughter Cult and Under. But to go with IMPETIGO and Horror of the Zombies, Faceless, Ultimo Mundo, like, you honestly, if you're a horror fan, a cult horror fan, we all love Reanimator, we all love Dawn of the Dead, we all love, not the big ones, but the ones. IMPETIGO are the ones that bring you to Zombie and Cannibal Holocaust and The Gates of Hell and Tombs of the Blind Dead and takes you into those areas of the underground, which not too many people touch because it's just exploitation, right? So, I don't know what else to say, man. I'm fucking winded and I'm getting tired and I need to get a drink, smoke a joint, and enjoy the weekend. So, thank you very much, Stevo, and everybody in IMPETIGO. Fucking love you guys. Like I said, man, one of the closest bands to my heart in the underground, literally. Like, on top of Cannibal, on top of Malevolent, on top of Deicide, on top of Obituary, on top of Morbid. Suffo. I swear to God, IMPETIGO is, like, up there. Unbelievable. And it's an honor to hang out and actually shoot shit with one of the men. So, thank you very much, everybody, and have a great weekend. And like all we talk about, honestly, go back, check out the bands that we've talked about, Stevo brought up, everything. Do your research, go where, you know, the origins are, find out what, you know, sparked these guys' interests from just what, based on what he's talked about, and beyond. Just do your digging, man. That's all we ask. We give you the info, then it's your time to fucking dig. So, go check that shit out. Have a good weekend. Fucking rock and roll. We'll see you guys next week. Not sure what we have lined up. Actually, I do know what we have lined up, but I'm just not going to say anything. So, we'll give you the weekend off. So, fucking rock and roll, buddies. And that's it. Fuck it.